morning, beautiful people. It is Thursday, the 26th of June. Welcome to TDA, the day after your favorite news platform and the home of popular culture as defined by you guys, the culture. And like we are every blessed day, we are hosted by the very best. Brent, you in the building?
Boom. Good morning. How art thou?
That was fine. I'm doing fantastic. You know what I mean? Can't complain.
Lovely. How was your day yesterday?
Yeah, it was good, man.
How was work?
Yeah, it's all right, man. It's good, man. You know, can't complain. Everything went smoothly and as it should.
Good afternoon.
So, you know. Someone just came in the building. You know what I'm saying? Like I said to you guys yesterday, we've got two masters coming in the building
Come
today.
on.
You know what I'm saying? How you doing? You good? And it's going to be a good show, man. It's going to be a good show.
Is me here?
Yeah, I believe so, yeah. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who's like an extended family member. He's a family member, you know what I'm saying? He's just turned up. So I'm going to get him to introduce himself. And also we've got a new person who's come into the TDA fold.
Come on.
Blessing us with his presence, you know what I'm saying? Good morning, how are you?
Good morning.
Please tell the people who you are.
I'm just Tom.
All right.
That's it. I've known Brent for a long time. And that's it, you know? So, yeah. Good morning, everyone.
Thank you for turning up. And our good brother.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm very good.
Okay. I'm pretty sure you don't need to introduce yourself to the chat. But to be fair, I'm seeing a couple new people coming in into the chat every now and again. So, if you don't mind, Andrew, please tell the people who you are.
Sure. My name is Andrew, also known as the King's Monologue. I've been on the channel quite a few times now, so some experiences have been positive, others have been wildly berated, but you know, all a part of the fun.
Tom, what did you think about Top Boy? All right, sorry. Have you seen Top Boy?
Not in full, no.
Okay.
I haven't watched it. No.
Have you seen what was that one? The sickle cell one. Supercell.
No. I must tell everyone, I don't really watch television that much, or series. I haven't had a TV in 15, 20 years.
All right.
I watch the sports. I do watch, so I go to the pub, I watch the sports, but I got Paramount Plus the other week to watch Mobland, because that's fantastic, I think. But apart from that, even my friend, he had Netflix. I just haven't. I mean, you shouldn't use someone else's now these days, anyway. But I haven't. But I don't really watch TV.
Can you let everyone know what it is that you do for a living?
What do I do for a living? What do I do? I invest in things, basically, financially, professionally, institutionally. So I'm one of those people that we spend all day reading, going out to places, trying to understand how businesses work, like really work, what the widgets do and things like that, who their customers are, who their suppliers are, all that kind of stuff, and decide if they're good investments or not. So that's what I do for a living and have done for a while. So it keeps me honest, also keeps me very busy, hence why I don't watch any TV. And I spend a lot of time reading. I have lots of newspapers here. I spend a lot of time reading the news, trying to understand what's going on in the world, trying to make sense of all the noise. There's obviously a lot of noise in the world right now, so trying to actually make sense of it and, trying to see where the opportunities lie and where the risks are as well. And that's what I do. So.
All right, so I met you on a podcast called Over the Bridge,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And it's a group of ex-Cambridge students or graduates who came together.
Correct.
And we're speaking on current affairs, music, all sorts of stuff, right?
Correct.
And then you left the group.
I retired.
You retired.
Correct.
You retired. And did you go somewhere? Did you live somewhere else other than England?
I lived in Switzerland for a couple of years.
How was living in Switzerland?
Well, one, it was during COVID, so that makes things a little bit weird. But actually, it's a beautiful place. But it's very... I'm back here because there's no place like home. But it's a great place to be, right? Don't get me wrong. So, but yeah, it's very different. It's very peaceful, very, very slow though, if that makes sense, which is a good way to live. And quality of life is fantastic. But I think there's kind of no place like London. And I think everybody's right. London in the summer is sublime, you know? I don't think there's anywhere
It's
like
gone
it.
down a bit though, hasn't it?
Well, London
I used to love
no,
London in the summer, and now I'm kind of like, I'm over it.
Nah, I don't think you could ever be over it, you know. Do you know, actually, I was actually reading something on the way this morning. Wimbledon's approaching, and where is it? It's here. This is from the Eye. This is from the Eye. It's from the Daily Telegraph. I put it up here. They're making strawberry and cream sandwich, M&S, ahead of... So the summer is, you know, people still love the summer, right? English summer, so, yeah, you know. But you're right, it's not the same, but I also think there's part of us just being adults now, right? With the responsibilities.
I was going to say that. I think it's an adulting thing. Yeah. I think when you just got a lot of responsibilities. So.
Come on!
It's so dramatic.
Today is like your Tom's favorite. Your Tom's. This is Tom. I'm trying to get Tom to say more about himself because him just saying he's Tom.
No,
it's not
but
helping for
it's you know, I'm just Tom. That's
You're just Tom.
Humble, man.
I'm just Tom. I'm just Tom.
Love that.
So basically, I first met Tom on a podcast. Then he left, right? I was very saddened that he had left because I had big plans for the entire group, right?
He did.
Then I saw him again, and he told me that whilst it is that he was away, he was working in Switzerland, and he had met many different interesting individuals whilst, you know, in his particular category of work. And I'm like, wow, oh my goodness. And Tom, he's like a measured, calm, cool guy. And I would have never thought the type of stuff he was telling me, he actually, you know, experienced. But anyway, I'm now surprised to see him back in UK, like full time. And I'm wondering, have you like run from like what?
No, people ask this. Do you know what it was? People, because the thing is, right, it was like, I mean, the money was excellent, but the money there is excellent anyway because it's so expensive to be there. I'll give you an illustration, right? So shopping there for food in Switzerland with a bit of alcohol, meat, fish, all of that stuff probably will cost you about a monthly shop. For myself, 700 Swiss francs for myself. This isn't me going crazy as well, right? What I did was I bought a car.
Convert that.
Where's that
Sorry.
pound?
So about, at the time, 650. This is like COVID, so not...
£650?
Yeah,
So it's
600.
like 1-to-1 almost.
For a monthly shop?
Yes, it's
No kids,
expensive.
no nothing.
No
One
kids, no nothing, right? And just not even that much alcohol as well. Just a little bit, like a good basket of food and drink, right? I got a car in Switzerland, drove to France, cost half the price. for basically the same shopping. Even though quality of food is fantastic, but it's like, you know, like, what is this? Millionaires, it's a billionaire's
crazy,
playground though, that's the thing.
Wow.
Switzerland is I was sitting, where was I? I was up in Verbier, which is up in the mountains, but it's beautiful, yeah? And I was sitting, talking to a guy in a pizza, like a little pub where they do gastro pub having pizza. And I'm sitting there with a guy, and the guy's like, how are you talking to this guy? He's worth $9 billion. I'm like, I don't really care. Guy's worth $9 billion.
Wow.
Just retired. His money's there. Like, he don't, when you got that kind of money, you ain't got to work, bro.
Of course not.
$9 billion.
You're probably working because he's bored.
Bruv, he's working because he's bored.
Yeah.
Like, and he's just like, I'm great, you know. But I don't know. I love London, to be honest.
How
I
long
know,
were you there for?
2 years.
Okay.
2 years.
Is that the first place you've lived outside of the UK or London?
Well, out the UK, yeah.
Yeah.
So, no, it was good, but no place like home. So back now.
Wonderful. And
There's not really any such thing as retirement for the self-employed, I find, or
No.
for people who work for themselves,
There isn't.
because they're doing what they like anyway. And retirement's just kind of like
What would
putting
you do?
yourself out to pasture. Exactly.
What would you do
Yeah,
if
making sense.
someone asked me this? Right? There's a guy I
So I'm
know.
thinking of like 50 things I could do. Give me the time.
What would you do if you had no money problems, everything was paid for? What would you do?
Things that, like, hobbies,
Go on.
nice things. So recently I've picked up reading. I haven't had time to read a book, like, in so long. Now I'm breezing through books and this is about to be an expensive hobby. But I'm currently like focused on Nigerian authors.
Okay.
Done my second book now. I'm loving it. So stuff like that. There's like things I want to try out that I've never had the time. Like I want to do salsa dancing, for example.
Nice.
I want to, is it pottery? What's that thing with the messy modern stuff? I want to try. I feel like there's just so many things that I want to try. I enjoy traveling. I'd want to like explore different people's cultures, and I feel like life. I want to just live life without the worry of money. I feel like a lot of people, we can't live because of money. So I was in Canary Wharf yesterday, right? And then I went out to get something. And you know, like in Canary Wharf, it's got the like they've got these benches now just outside of the Jubilee station.
Oh, yeah,
People can
yeah,
sit down, have their lunch. And no, it was, first of all, it was so packed yesterday for some reason. I was like, okay, fair enough.
No, it was hot.
Yeah, it was warm. Do you know, it wasn't even that. It was warm yesterday. But then also as well, people just looked miserable. Like, people looked like robots. They just looked like they were just going with the motion.
Yeah,
and
of course.
And then I'm seeing people like
Canary
sat
Wharf.
there for lunch. Yeah, and I'm seeing people sat there for lunch, and it's like, oh, some of them are in groups with colleagues or whatever. Or some of them are sat by themselves
So the fact
and
that they
just
can
there
even
with their
sit.
food. Some people are on their phones, some people are just staring into. And I'm like, this is not life. So if I didn't have to worry about money,
Yeah.
I would just live. Like, there's just things that hobbies I would have. I feel like there's so much that would improve the quality of my life.
I think you can. This is the thing I've learned having lived in Switzerland. Yeah, and having worked in Canary Wharf as well, which you know I didn't even have time to sit down. You go get your food back to your desk and carry on with your day. But you make the life is what you make it, right?
Absolutely.
So you know all of those things you've mentioned before. They don't sound too expensive. All of those things that you mentioned, including like the traveling thing. And you create that. One of the best things for travel, by the way, I'll plug it, even though because I don't get paid. But this is great. Everyone should know. But if you heard of Jack's Flight Club,
Yes, I have.
fantastic. It's basically this app that works out when airlines either make mistakes with their pricing or when they're doing price wars. So for example, I went to Bali a couple of years ago. I paid like $320 return to Bali.
Yeah, it's really good.
Vancouver for $250. I was supposed to go to Japan, didn't happen because of COVID, but that was like $350 return. So look at that, and then you can just go. So there are ways. You just have to pull on a budget, to be honest. You know what I mean? Because you're right, cost of living is insane.
Nice, I'll get the app.
No, I get it. I just have a look at it. It's really good. And you notice. I notice this as well. That so what you see is like when you say you want to go to the US, everyone wants to go to New York or whatever. You want to go to New York. BA will drop prices, then you'll notice that Virgin will do it, then United would do it, and Delta, if you're flying maybe out from Amsterdam or whatever, would do it as well. So you can do that because, that's the thing. You don't have to pay top dollar for everything to have a good quality of life. Price is what you pay, value is what you get, right? So, you know what I mean? So, so.
Still a born again Christian?
Huh?
Still a born again Christian?
I am. I am. Well, our faith is so personal to me. Do you know what I mean? It's such a personal thing. I've never questioned the sovereignty of the Lord, save for maybe a few situations where I think everybody would. But thank God for
Amen,
Lord and Savior
amen.
Jesus Christ. You get me?
You look more handsome. Have you done something to your beard?
Me? I've got a holiday coming in a couple of weeks, so I've just been eating clean. It just kind of like makes the overall aesthetic
Nice.
It looks a bit,
a bit fuller.
Yeah.
I've got my black Hebrew going on as well.
Okay.
Come on.
All right.
I'm looking like the men on the walls of Lachish.
You got some brown going as well?
No, oh, well, there.
Yeah.
So I used to dye my beard using the toxins.
You used to dye it?
Huh?
You used to dye your beard?
Is that dyed black?
No, I haven't finished yet. I still dye it. But I said I used to dye my beard using the toxins, but I've now switched over to henna and indigo, which is a natural way to do it. So this is the red, and it leaves kind of like a red trace when the kind of indigo fades, but I don't mind the red.
Yeah.
I don't know, it just feels like,
Yeah.
This is natural. This is how this is how the ancestors used to do it.
Brown.
You know what I mean?
Instead of silver fox, brown fox. Yeah.
So I don't mind it.
All right. Good morning, beautiful Esther. I don't think you introduced yourself. Man royalty.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you, Esther.
It's lovely to meet you. What's your name, sorry?
Andrew.
Andrew. Esther.
Oh, it's the first time?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wow.
We've
I've barely
We've
been
never
here.
had feminine energy in here before. It's always like a man fest.
You've always had me. What are you talking about?
You're not feminine.
You're the most aggressive.
God damn it. God damn it. Never mind. All right, cool. You got any announcements, man, before we crack on?
Nah, not really, man. Not really.
Alright.
Yes.
Let's get into the headlines.
Let's do it. All right, people. So our first set of headlines take us to NATO's big summits on hiking defense spending, right? So there were unexpected moments of levity amongst the momentous decisions over the looming threat from Russia and raising defense spending to levels not seen since the Cold War. The main takeaway is the Allies' commitment to a 5% defense spending target to be reached within a decade. It's a remarkable jump from the current 2% guideline, which currently isn't even met by 8 NATO members out of 32. Only 3.5% of that figure is meant to be achieved entirely through core defense spending on troops and weapons, while the remaining 1.5% can be put towards defense-related expenditure. Plans to reach the 5% figure will have to be submitted annually and will have to follow a credible incremental path. And a review of that will take place in 2029. Next headline, and a significant number of Labour MPs are threatening to vote against the government's working age welfare reform plan when it comes before the House of Commons next week. The reforms are designed to reduce the overall working age welfare bill by about £5 billion a year by the end of the decade. And the Rebel MPs have signed an amendment to the legislation that makes a series of objections, including a lack of official consultation and impact assessments. The government wants to save more money in a few ways, but basically what they're trying to do is to make it harder for people to access PIP, the personal independence payment, and cut the rate of incapacity benefit. Incapacity benefit, which is mainly paid through the health element of universal credit, that goes to those that are deemed to be unable to work for health reasons, right? And this benefit is set to be reduced by 50% in cash. Terms for new claimants from April 2026, April next year, for existing claimants is due, So for existing claims, it's due to be held flat in cash terms until 2029, 2030, meaning payments will not rise in line with inflation. And the government estimates that these two changes will save £3 billion a year by the end of the decade. And our last headline, King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust confirmed that one patient sadly passed away unexpectedly during the cyber attack on the 3rd of June of last year, which disrupted more than 10,000 appointments. A spokesperson for the trust said that a number of contributing factors led to the patient's death, including a long wait for a blood test result. Patient data, which is managed by Synovis, which is the agency which manages labs for NHS trusts and GPs in South East London, was stolen during the incident. And a spokesperson for the trust said that a detailed review had been undertaken of the patient's care. They said basically that the patient safety incident investigation identified a number of contributing factors that led to the patient's death. This included a long wait for a blood test result due to the cyber attack impacting pathology services at the time. The spokesperson also added that they couldn't confirm the date of the death or the person's age, citing confidentiality. And that's it for our headlines. Let's get into our topic of the day.
I think that's the first time you've done the headlines and my blood hasn't started boiling. That's nice.
Well, it's the first of 3. You know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean?
6 more to the 40.
There you go, man.
Where can we cop the t-shirts from?
You talking to me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, so this is my, this is actually, you can get this if you go to my website, tkmedu.com, and go to the shop section. You can then buy the t-shirts. This is my favourite. This is one of my favourite. Actually, my favourite one's the Queen Tea, but I was wearing that yesterday, so it's in the wash. So this is my King Tut shirt.
Okay.
Yeah.
tkmedu.com.
And there should be a shop link. Is it shop in the menu?
All right, I'll put it in the chat. Thank you very much.
The funniest thing at NATO, I was reading this is the Independent this morning. It talks about the Secretary General of NATO. What did he say? He said that Trump was like a daddy, like an upset daddy. He said, and daddy has to sometimes use strong language to get them to stop. The comments they made the other day. Trump has come back and said about the Secretary General, the Secretary General. He said, "Daddy, you're my daddy." That's what he said. Always a bit of funny things. The NATO thing is always interesting because if you go back years ago, the aim was about 3% of GDP was to be spent in defence, and the US has obviously always been able to satisfy that and exceed that. But many countries, including the UK is still short. UK is about 2.5 or something. So to get to 5 is actually very, very significant. But there are a number of countries who will not be able to do it, actually. So Spain have said they will not be able to do it. Slovakia have said the same thing. There's a bunch of countries that said we're not going to be able to do this. And there's always been this argument and this struggle because ultimately most of the weapons manufacturers and aerospace and defense companies are the US, so like Lockheed Martin, Northrop Grumman, Boeing, General Dynamics, those kind of companies that make planes, armaments, missiles, all of those things there in the US. And these countries need security clearance. And actually yesterday, I think this is a relevant headline, that the UK announced about 12 F-35 jet fighters. They already have some, but this is a different kind of jet fighter which will be able to use nuclear payload, in other words, nuclear weapons, which tells you the state where everybody thinks the world is in.
Yep.
The difficulty with these F-35s, and for those who know, it's F-35A. The UK uses F-35B, which is a little bit different. It hovers off the ground. This is just this all-seeing, all-dancing fifth-generation fighter pilot jet kind of thing. Like you put on a helmet, and you can the pilots can control with their eyes what they do with the plane. It's crazy. There you go, F-35. They want the F-35A. The issue now that the UK has to deal with is how do you fuel these things? You need to fuel it using a plane that puts fuel at the back. The UK doesn't have any, so they're going to have to spend some money to go and get that, or they're going to have to get permission from the US and get some US fuel over there. So that's a very significant thing actually, and you need very high level of security clearance to get F-35. The UK has its own program. Used to be the Eurofighter program. I don't know if it's changed, but I think right now the UK is working with themselves because there are a couple of defence companies here like BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce. They do that, and they're working with the Italians. I think that's Leonardo, and the Japanese. I don't know who, but they're working with that as well. So working with those guys to do something. But that's the spend. NATO is, the world has changed, I think, a lot. The fact that countries are very open to spending on infrastructure, on defence, tells you where everyone thinks the world is going. Even Germany, which for a long time, Germany's unique property in Europe was that it didn't like to spend money. It was one of probably the most fiscally conservative country in Europe. And I would include the UK and all of that as well because they're in NATO and they still engage in Europe in these things. But that kind of tells you, and then all of a sudden, like, no, we have to spend lots of money. So they're going to spend, I think, was it 500 billion infrastructure program or something. And there aren't that many German defense companies, but there's one, and that's the stock price of that thing went through the moon. If you look at a company called Rheinmetall, stock just went up I've known about Rheinmetall for years because they just, whatever you read and you know about them, stock just went up like a rocket, man. If you bought that and you had that in your own personal portfolio, you'd be okay. You'd be okay, right? But the suggestion that old Germany, so if you think about what Germany is good for, typical manufacturing and things like that, it's kind of dying. But now the suggestion is that maybe some of these places, some of the big German industrial companies, think about BASF or Siemens or Volkswagen, they can kind of give Rheinmetall their plants for military purposes, manufacturing purposes, and it's kind of a massive pivot that we've seen, which I didn't think we would ever really see. I think the world has definitely changed. Even before what we saw last week or anything else. I mean, I was saying to Brent that I would argue we've had a world war since 2023. We've been in World War III since 2023, to be honest.
World War III since
Yes.
You know what?
Yes.
We're going to get into this.
We'll get into it.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll get into it.
I also want to know, what you think some real consequences will be for those countries who can't actually meet the spend for NATO. But we'll get into
we'll get there. But there's a few. There are a few. But yeah. So.
Cool. Well, like I said, people, yesterday, we're going to have a topic of the day, which might be, that might have us split, right? And that's basically what we're going to talk about now. So this is about basically, I guess, the power of melanin, about skin cancer. It's about SPF, prevention of all these things, what people suffer from, who's susceptible to certain things. And I guess the narrative around all those things, why we believe what we believe, pretty much, right? And I guess let's jump straight in from there, man. I don't even know, where should we start?
Before we start, Andrew,
Yes.
is there a possible question I can put to the chat via a poll?
Yeah.
What's the question?
Do you use sunscreen? Yes or no?
Can we ask? I think that's a good question. Can we ask between that or do black people need sunscreen?
Okay.
Yeah, I think that one's good because a lot of black people don't think they need sunscreen. They think our skin is just immune to the sun, but then you can also get burnt when you go on holiday. So
We gonna get into it.
Well, we are going to get into it, definitely.
Ozone layers opened up, boy. You know what I mean? That ozone layer, changing it. Global warming's changed everything, man. That's my thing. Yeah, like I think I use sunscreen, but also I'm slightly less melanated, even by racial composition. I'm less melanated as such. So that's probably my cop out to begin with. But yeah, I do, and it's the sun that we've had this summer. One, it's been early. Two, it's been swelteringly hot. Swelteringly hot. Like, and it's not like when you go out to the tropics or you go to Africa, Caribbean, where you've got a breeze and something and it's nice and you've got the water in that breeze. None of that. Just heat bearing down on you. And like, we're in the Northern Hemisphere and you're thinking, what is this? So I went to Boots the other week, I got my factor 50 and I got after sun. And after sun, because I need the aloe vera for cooling. Because you should have the cooling or something. And I was walking, I got heat rash, which I haven't had heat rash in years. Bruv, like, heat rash.
I'm hearing all this out. I'm thinking, what's after sun?
What's after sun?
Yeah.
Bruv, you man don't know after sun. Basically, you get sunscreen, yeah, and after you use the sunscreen, you get like this after sun, which just cools your skin down. And it's basically mainly, there's obviously chemicals in it and stuff, but it's mainly aloe vera, which is obviously very good for you. And like, I think some of them have like tea
aloe vera
tree,
is not
which
good for you?
No, it's good for you.
Oh,
No,
okay.
it's good.
I was
No,
gonna say, okay.
no, it's good for you. And then you've got like, I think some of them have like tea tree and witch hazel, which are obviously good for the skin. Those are like the main products. There's obviously chemicals in them, which I'm not a fan of. But also, my thing is I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist. So, and for me, having sort of before using the sun, not using the sunscreen and burning and getting heat rash, which I've not had in years, and now putting this on, I found this had a much better difference, to be honest. So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So obviously the question, Andrew,
Just a whip run in the room. Who uses sunscreen and who doesn't? You,
I
Manuel.
do,
I don't use sunscreen.
Okay. How about you, Esther?
of course.
And you've already said you do. And how about you?
Never.
All right, okay.
That was perfect then. That side.
Never.
Banned in my house.
Never. Wow.
Banned in my house is crazy.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Banned in my house
Banned
is
in
a
my
choice.
house,
That's crazy work.
Yeah. Well, it's
What's your beef with sunscreen? Banned in my house, like it's like porn or something, is crazy work.
okay.
Why
So
is it banned?
that's actually a very good question, and that's the exact response that I expect, because I think that as a whole, we are, and when I say we are talking about as black people, we are very trusting of medical narratives that are put out there, but also we are very, and this is not an attack on anyone, this is me included up to a certain point, we are very lazy in regards to our own investigation about things that are true and things that are not true. And what actually started me down this path was to investigate, because just on a base level, I knew that melanin afforded me protections that people who don't have melanin don't have. I just knew that on a basic level.
Yeah.
And I knew that on a familial level, in Nigeria, for instance, where I'm from, no one uses this product and no one gets skin cancer on a broad
What do
level.
you mean no one gets skin cancer?
I'll come on to that. No one is a generalization, but if you was going to take the numbers into account, and I've got tables to show you. I'll show you the actual official tables. Skin cancer contraction is very rare. I mean, astronomically rare, to the point where if you compare it, it's so ridiculously disparate in terms of what the rates are amongst, white Europeans, that you may as well say this thing is, we shouldn't even be concerned about this thing. That's how low it is. So seeing that, but then hearing the reverse being purported in the media, and when I say the reverse, I mean the direct reverse. So saying, as a black person, you're more susceptible to skin cancer. I was like, whoa, this is...
Where does that come from?
Oh, there's a few. I mean, if you've seen... It's out there. You've seen my... I've done a documentary on it. Yeah, they push that hard.
Really?
More so in America, but it's on the way here because they've done similar things in the UK.
Sounds just like big pharma to me.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of big pharma, but I also think it's a bit of... because even you said, you made a statement earlier, and I thought that's very true, because there's a difference between science and product. And I think people don't understand that sometimes. So there's a difference between, you said, I'm not a scientist. It's kind of like people are out there trusting that everything that they see on the shelves has been rubber stamped by science and peer review. And actually, a lot of the times it isn't the case. And one of the things about you'll find when it comes to the medical industry in general, and this is a headline I want everyone to kind of like take away here, because this is a truth, all right, is that in general, Western Europeans or white people, whatever you want to call them, they will essentially democratize their ailments, but they'll privatize their strengths. So essentially, they'll say anything that's wrong with them, they'll say this is wrong with everybody. And this is a concern, and we need to tackle this as a global community because we're all dying from this.
So hence why the NHS is, well, among many reasons, but on it pretty much on its last legs.
Yeah.
Right? And they, the government have tried to. Some of, obviously, there's a part of it is aging population as well, and it not fitting with the model in 45, but. I mean, that makes a lot. I can definitely see where you're coming from, by the way. Like, because one, I've never heard that headline before about, black people getting skin cancer. I've never heard that before. But I'm like, so that sounds a bit off to me anyway.
Yeah.
But two, it's also the same. There's a kind of similar argument in terms of food. So what I mean by that is, I've stopped buying meat and fish from supermarkets. Go to the butchers now, from fork to farm, and there's a massive difference in the way it tastes. Even if, for example, if you get a whole chicken, right, a lot of the time from a supermarket it's going to be injected with water for the weight content, right? But then when you put it in the oven or you sweat it out on the grill, it's different. Whereas if you go to a farm, you pay more money, but you're actually getting more content as such. So I definitely see the parallel. But I would say for me, though, it's more just, I just want to cool my skin, to be honest.
Oh, no, and this and to be clear, this is not, I'm not going to come at people. Everyone has their kind of like skincare routines. But the thing that I want to address is the rampant misinformation when it comes to this. And I mean, when I say rampant, it's rampant misinformation in terms of the way people promote this. And I think a lot of it is due to the fact that it's not, no one's deliberately trying to be deceptive, but once again, we are unwillingly trusting of narratives that go out, and we don't do that kind of due diligence that's necessary of taking that message, digesting it for ourselves, and then sending the message out again in a correct way that makes sense. What we do is we just go, press release, here you go, published. Do you understand what I mean? And we haven't bothered to do the DD. And if we bothered to do the DD, we'd realise that what we're doing, and this is where it's going to come on to your question earlier about what do I have against SPF, it's actually been proven, and I'll show you the study, that SPF actually has the reverse effect in black people. It's actually harmful. So you think you're out there protecting yourself from skin cancer, and you're actually increasing your risk of contracting the type of skin cancer that black people get. Because we don't get UV-induced skin cancer, so by and large. We don't get it.
Wow. So is your thing, the misinformation that you speak of, is that mainly just to do with skin cancer? Because I don't wear SPF for skin cancer, and the things that I wear, the reasons why I wear SPF for, it helps me with that. So is your main thing that the misinformation is to do with skin cancer? Because I've never heard that black people are more likely to get skin cancer.
Yeah,
I've never heard that.
And
ever.
Me neither. And I love, like, in your own time, but like actually, and maybe Brent, you can do this as well. Like, just put out the citations as well.
See him
'Cause I think
typing?
people would love
Brent
to.
is typing away.
No, seriously, because
yeah.
like if this is listen,
I can give you the names of all the
we've,
studies.
listen,
as well.
we've all got our specialties in life, right?
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
there'll be things that I know that you definitely, and vice versa. And this is, I'm new to this, right? So I'm actually curious to read about this. So
Because
So So I want to answer your question first of all. So I know that a lot of black people use, well, not a lot, but a few black people use SPF specifically for the reason of essentially maybe not darkening, because if you put it on, it kind of just like maintains whatever it is. SPF, first of all, you have to understand that these aren't some kind of harmless, natural blockade you're putting on. These things contain plastics. These aren't natural products. It's not like you can't compare an SPF to an aloe vera or to, other things that you put on your skin. So you are making and there are other things that will give you some protection that aren't SPF. So you're not putting something on your skin that is neutral. This is something that you should avoid putting on your skin unless you are of a certain demographic and the alternative is worse. So if you're kind of like if you're a white person, the alternative, which is being unprotected and going out in the sun, and you're very high risk of contracting melanoma, that's put SPF on. Absolutely, use SPF 50. Do it. If you're a black person and you're doing it just because, and by the way, it doesn't. A lot of time when people go out in the sun and they sunburn, even as a black person, there's kind of two things that I'm going to say in regards to sunburn itself. One, it's normally caused by products that you place on your skin. So you have to look at the kind of skin creams that you're using because they'll react to the sun. And two, if you're burning in the sun, then you're spending too long in the sun anyway. And this is one of the things that you learn if you go back home. Sunbathing, as we know, is not a thing in Nigeria and Ghana and Ethiopia. Like, you have to watch how long you spend in the sun. But as a black person, and I can say this, like, as a dark-skinned black person, because I've got people who are my complexion, who, like a sister-in-law, she goes out and says, I burn all the time. It's like, you're always slapping stuff on your skin. And we walk out in the same sun, you come back and your skin's all peeling and burning. That's because you've got all these products on. Meanwhile, I simply just put a very thin layer of oil on my skin. When I'm back home, I don't put nothing on my skin.
I know some people put oil on.
And
so they cook.
some of us have dry skin. This conversation is not inclusive. Some of us have dry skin.
No, but I think you'll just find that, just like with any skincare routine.
Because in my mind, if you're saying the products that we're putting on are plastic and blah blah, in my mind, you have to be like making your own natural products. Because saying that people are burning, or one of the reasons is how long people are spending in the sun, even people back home will tell you the sun beat them today because they're working in the sun. And you will see the effects of the sun. Again,
but I don't think they'll sunburn and peel.
We don't know. That's the thing. Because it's kind of like when you said about the skin cancer and people not having skin cancer. If your sites or your what's it called?
Sources.
The sources are from Nigerian hospitals.
They are.
Yeah, I'm not gonna believe that, because Nigerian hospitals, how many people die and they don't know the reasons why they've died? Like, when it comes to like our foods and like, there's so many reasons, there's so many things, right? There's a reason why the rich people in Nigeria and the government wouldn't even go and check a toenail in the hospitals and fly abroad. So I can't take those statistics as actual factual that black people don't have skin cancer.
The statistics are the same.
But I think
for diaspora communities so black diaspora communities in America and the UK as well. So it's not, you can't choose not to believe it because you've believed it for so long.
But that's not why I'm not believing it. I'm not believing it because what you're saying to me is not in a disrespectful way, but it's not adding up. Like, a lot of black people that again, the whole skin cancer, black people being more susceptible, more likely to get skin cancer. I've never heard that before. The reasons why why people would use SPF, people have very different things. I lived in Nigeria, and because I was always covered up, my face is darker than the rest of my body. What's it called? SPF doesn't prevent you from tanning. It doesn't prevent you from being dark or whatever the case. I don't know if there's people that are using it for that situation, but that's not facts.
So why do you use
That's
it?
misinformation. I'm getting there. That's misinformation.
And I do want to know where you got that from. Like black people
Yeah.
more likely.
Yeah, I
to
would-
get sick.
I would
Because
like to know.
I've
Because
popped
there's
it in,
there's loads of no. So this is what this.
So
So
I
this is,
popped it in ChatGPT, my assistant, right?
Of course.
And
Is
it
it
says it's
Leroy? What do you call him
ridiculous.
again?
I'm not seeing it. It says
Yeah.
that black people are less likely to get cancer.
no. This is my. I'm not expecting ChatGPT to say it
Yeah.
because it's part of the disinformation.
All
is
right,
my
it's
point.
part of the-
Yeah.
of
So
the
if you
vibe.
look in the media, and this is what I'm saying about
No, but what
separating
about-
science.
no.
One second. So this is about separating science and product. So
Yeah,
if you look through the media, when I did a very kind of in-depth study on this, the thing that prompted it is because there was this WhatsApp that was going around.
Yeah.
Saying just that.
Yeah.
And then I looked in the media and I can show you Fox News, I can show you ABC, I
but
can
not
show
the
you
media. We're not-
articles.
No,
No, because people are...
but not. Hold on. Sorry, just.
Let me finish my point. I'll let you jump in. Fox News, ABC, lots of media outlets. And this is what people listen to. People don't go around reading academic papers.
Yes, they do. This is the point I was about
No,
to make.
you absolutely
I think
do.
a lot of people
I'm not
do.
saying
Which
you
is,
do. I don't
which,
think a lot
which
of
is what
people
I'm
do.
about to say, which is.
No, I'll let you jump in. Let me finish.
Where's your
I'll let you
reference
jump
on
in.
JSTOR, for example? Where's your academic reference? Because this is.
Let me...
I'll let you. Sorry, no, I'm just curious though, because it's like. You're
Just one second.
Yeah, go on.
Relax.
Sorry, I'll let you.
Yes, cool. So,
Thank you.
so my point is, and by the way, I've got academic references for everything that I'm saying here.
Which
The
you
point
haven't
is, I was...
brought here this morning.
I have brought them.
Bring them out then.
No, you
I'd
need
like
to
to
bring
know.
No, come on, go day. Come on.
No, you Finish what- See, this is the thing. When you use SPF, you take it really personally. So the point I was saying was that the media is what 99% of what people consume. Okay, most people, a majority of people, won't go out.
1 second, please. I want everybody to hear this, and something's just happened.
There we go.
Back.
Back, yeah,
Okay,
back.
cool. Yeah, so the point I was making was that 99% of people consume their even from the media, news reports, BBC. People can go around talking about, oh yeah, people read academic papers. No, they don't. And this is just the problem. If they did, then I wouldn't be here having to inform black people that you shouldn't be wearing SPF. And when I say shouldn't, I literally mean shouldn't be wearing SPF, because that's what the actual papers say. So I'm going to leave that point and then let people make their points. And then I'll start, if you want me to, reading quotes directly from academic papers to kind of correct people's perspectives on how helpful / harmful SPFs are to people who are melanated. And this isn't just deeply melanated black people. This is all of Africa, a vast majority of Asia. So even just like brown people, okay, don't need SPF. We don't contract UV-induced melanoma, okay? And by the way, SPF's purpose is to protect you from melanoma. That's its purpose, okay? That's what the fear is. The fear is that you're going to burn, and that will lead to a contraction of skin cancer or some form of melanoma, which is one of the biggest killers out there. That's what its purpose is. If there was no melanoma, then SPF wouldn't really be a thing.
What is melanoma?
Yeah.
Maybe I am missing something here. What is melanoma?
It's skin cancer. It's cutaneous. So it's basically, skin cancer.
But this is what I'm saying though. These studies are focused on people that are wearing SPF for the purpose of not getting skin cancer. But SPF helps people with different other skin concerns. It helps with aging your skin. It helps with your hyperpigmentation. Like it helps with melasma. There's so many different things that SPF helps with. And I get what you're saying. If someone's motivation is you wear an SPF because you think it's going to prevent skin cancer, it wouldn't. I don't think there's anything that absolutely will prevent certain. I just don't think that would be the case. So if that's the case, then fair enough. But I don't think that a message of don't wear SPF because black people don't need SPF when you haven't taken into consideration the different skin conditions that a variety of black people have, and that SPF helps them with. I don't think that's right.
Well, I
Because also, I didn't start wearing SPF because The Guardian told me to or any media told me to. I started wearing SPF because I was going to skin doctors about skin issues that I had. And so that's one of the things that was told to me. And so also, if we're going to say that SPF has all these bad chemicals, SPF, what body cream do you use? What body soap do you use? Do you use shower gel? What hair cream do you use? What shampoo do you like? We can really go down the rabbit hole. I don't think people should be criticized for listening to doctors when that is their area of specialty. That's what they've studied. So I don't think it's crazy that if a doctor says this to me, it's crazy for me to believe what someone who has gone to study that in university has said to me. Of course, there are other things where you would at some point make informed decisions for yourself. You would look up what the risks are and whatever the case is. But from what I've known, using SPF for as many years as I've been using it now, it has helped me with the skin conditions that I have. And I think with black people as well, when we say we don't need it, I just am not looking at people back home, the way that black people have hyperpigmentation. I'm just not buying it.
When you say hyperpigmentation, just to ask the question, because I find, and this is, once again, people have very personal experiences. Mm-hmm. So I find, and people that I know, everyone that I've ever known, that the sun has a balancing effect on my complexion. When I get a chance to go back home, I will obviously pick up a tan, I'll get darker, but my skin will even out. I'll lose a lot of blemishes. This is a personal experience for me and for a lot of people that I know. So the sun actually has a positive effect on the long-term appearance of my skin. That's my personal belief. So I guess I'm just trying to get under the hood of this issue of hyperpigmentation. Is the issue that you're getting darker, or is the issue that your skin is visibly, aesthetically not balanced? What is it? Because it sounds like it's a term that I think people use differently. So I'm just trying to understand what you mean.
So I think with the skin balancing your blemish, that's nice for you. Okay. But the skin doesn't have the same effect on everybody. Like he was saying, he had heat rash and blah, blah, blah. I grew up having really, really bad heat rashes, actually. When you said that, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't had that in years.
Had heat rash in years.
Yeah, I had that. I've had that. I've also had, being in the sun, my skin isn't always, it's not always balanced, essentially. I get, spots and some brighter spots, different things. So I think the way the sun works on different people's skin, the sun works differently on different people's skin, right? And obviously with your skin tone, it might work different to someone else's, whatever the case is. I can have my full body out in the sun. What is going to be the darkest is going to be my face, right? And when I catch a tan, that tan stays with me for a long, long time. And everywhere else in my body might start getting lighter, whatever the case, or reverting back to its the natural color. But my face, not for a long time. So that's why, again, I don't think it's right to make a blanket statement saying that black people don't need it or black and brown people don't need it, because whatever statistics, whatever sources it is that you have does not take into consideration how different people are affected by the sun. The people that have eczema, they can't be in the way they're going to react to the sun is going to be different. And eczema is just one of different skin conditions, psoriasis. There's so many things that we cannot make a blanket statement that because you and the people that you might know, the sun, clears out your skin and does this and does that and treats you well or whatever the case is, means that there's people who cannot be in the sun at all because the effects of it is going to be grave. So we can't sit here and make statements such as black people do not as an absolute. That's wild.
Because
I don't think it's wild.
No, of
course you don't, because you believe it and you said it.
I think if you're making a statement saying specifically with regards to melanoma and not applying SPF factor, whatever, or SPF number, and that helps with that. I can understand that, and the point about misinformation, completely
Understand
completely
that.
understand it, because you're right that like I'm pretty sure that like who makes Nivea make a lot of SPF. There's Beiersdorf. I'm pretty sure Beiersdorf are happy to lobby and whatever, right? And of course, and I'm pretty sure. I don't know if LVMH would do something, but of course, under that, L'Oreal may do something as well. Kering, all of these guys may make something, and there'll be some lobbying. Of course, I understand that, so they do that. But that's the point earlier on about, and the point about the news is very interesting. But why on earth would I want to consume news about skin cancer from ABC, BBC, CNN, MSNBC, The Guardian, The Times? Why would I want to do that? And so this is the point about, I think, getting the sources and the references is important. And I'd even say, even in an academic text, and I do read academic text because I think that I enjoy reading academic texts for what it's worth. And Brent can tell you this now.
You're an academic.
Yeah. Well, I wouldn't say I'm academic, but
you're not the norm.
I like reading because it's important. You see, and I was taught that from a young age to actually read it. 100%. And the thing I say about academic texts as well is that even academic texts, with regard to the medical profession, you find that studies often contradict themselves, even in the academic field.
Absolutely.
And so you see that, one of the funniest things I often note is that, people say red wine is good for you, right? Good for the heart and all this stuff, right? So an excuse to drink red wine. Then a study will say it prevents cancer of the heart or whatever. And then a study later will then say, no, it doesn't. So even these academic papers are not the best, but they're kind of better from the propaganda that we receive in the news all the time. If you're making that point, can completely get that. But because a news agency told me to apply factor 50, I'm going to do it. No, that's not. Like for me, I go on walks. Brent knows this anyway. I go on long walks. And I kind of do walks all around. There's this massive London loop. You can walk all around London and stuff. It's crazy. You go look it up. 150-mile loop all around London. Right?
150 miles.
It's crazy. Starts at Purfleet, and then you go all the way around, and you kind of end up like you go Enfield Chase, then you go, where'd you go? Cockford, you go all the way around. You go West, you go Kingston, then you go all south, like proper South London, then you end up back at like Erith. Crazy. You do that in the sweltering heat. To that point about you've been in the sun for too long, you're true. But for me, I was thinking, right, I'm going to go on these walks. I'm starting to get the sun rush and all of this. Let me get some factor 50 because I need to do these walks. I need to be out in the sun. I did it. I found it worked for me. I wasn't thinking about the skin cancer purpose. Now I think it's something I should be thinking about for sure. But I was thinking about that then, and hence why I got the after sun, the cooling thing, and it worked. And I said it worked for me. So to those points, because I think you've made a plethora of points here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that point about not listening to the media, I think is a very valid point for sure.
Absolutely.
The skin cancer thing I've never heard of before, so the citation I'll happily receive. Thank you. Yes. I'll happily receive. The contradictory point about what black people and white people go through, I'm curious in, obviously because of my genetic makeup. So I'm like, what the hell? Yeah. Where the hell do I sit in this?
Where do you stand?
Honestly,
Okay, you'll sit with the Asians.
sit with the brown people. But I'm curious. No, because I think I think it's an interesting point. But I think I understand what you're trying to do because the media has made sweeping generalizations.
Exactly.
You've made one back and said,
and let me qualify as well, because I think I was quite specific in saying need. Black people don't need SPF, okay? And this is the thing that I find interesting is because when you raise these points, like for instance, when I raise the point that people in general tend to consume media rather than, oh no, we all read academic, but no, we don't. Let's be honest about it. Yeah,
no, we should.
Most people, we should absolutely.
Should.
I do. I'm not saying, but I'm not coming at like what I do is the normal. Most people aren't sitting down independent researchers for a day job. So I don't expect people to sit, pull up papers. And there should be an element where we trust the media, although I think that's being naive.
I mean, if you trust the media, then you can tell me
trust
exactly. Deep state.
I think that's being naive. That's being naive. But the point being is that people would then go into this kind of like situation of denial. Oh no, I've never done that. It's like, no, be honest, you have. We've all been there where we've just heard something from the news and therefore assumed that it was correct. So we have to kind of be honest first of all. So the point I was making was that, we don't need it, okay? There are a demographic of people who need it. If you choose to wear it for different aesthetic purposes or you choose to wear it, to kind of like that's completely different. But that what you're doing is completely divergent from someone who is white who is doing it. They are doing it as almost like a national directive. Make sure you're wearing SPF 50. It's going to be 30 degrees today. That is a threat to your existence. Okay? There's a clear difference there. As a melanated person, it's not a threat to your existence. In fact, there's a study, and I'll give you the name of the study, in fact, because that will make it a bit more rigorous when I say it. There's a study that actually proves that we have an inverse effect when it comes to UV and contraction of melanoma, an inverse effect. So, i.e., when white people have too much sun, there's a direct correlation between how much UV they've absorbed and rates of melanoma. When black people absorb UV, there's a inverse effect, i.e., the melanoma rates go down as UV basically as you consume more UV. And that's because the type of melanoma that we get is called acral lentiginous melanoma. Okay, and that forms. Everyone comes out. Everyone's heard the Bob Marley story. Okay, Bob Marley died from skin cancer. Where did he have skin cancer? It was on his toe, specifically on the base of his toe. This is a part of your body that does not get sunlight. Acral lentiginous melanoma forms on parts of the body that are not exposed to the sun. Armpits, genital areas, bottom of feet, palms of hands, parts that don't get the sun. And that's where it forms. Black people who actually have greater exposure to UV actually reduce their risk of contracting melanoma because melanin's got a very, in fact, there was a recent study done where they found, and you guys might find this really interesting actually, where they found in Chernobyl.
Yes.
Yeah, have you seen that? So the fungus in Chernobyl had developed melanin. And what's interesting, if you look at the actual study itself, so the melanin doesn't just protect the fungus from UVation. The study proved that melanin has a similar property to chlorophyll in plants in that it can convert the radiation into energy. So you've got all this black fungus around Russia and Chernobyl where their radiation has leaked because the melanin has the ability to take that UV radiation and convert it into energy. That's how efficient your melanin is at dealing with sunlight.
If I think about it logically, I'm not a scientist, but if you think about it from the perspective of the color spectrum, right? So UV, ultraviolet, violet, kind of last color on the rainbow, the things that you can't see. You think about the way light travels through a prism, so probably it might react differently through melanated skin versus skin where there's a lack of melanin, and it works differently. Same thing, kind of like infrared might work on black people and white people differently. Like if you go to a sauna, the infrared might work differently because of the way the light travels, because ultimately the SPF, sun protection factor, right? So the chemicals not SPF. SPF is, we know when we're talking about SPF is the reference, but SPF is really just talking about sun protection factor against an element of radiation, UVA and UVB coming through the skin. So you protect from UVA and UVB. So that I can. But that's interesting that out of a nuclear disaster, there's now melanin protecting fungus. That is actually pretty interesting to think about, actually, which, I mean,
it's funny
that, that's crazy. That is crazy when you think about that, so.
It's funny because I've always said to people, when the sun's out, I feel energized. So when you're saying that, that makes perfect sense to me. Hence the reason why every time I'm on the show, I'm talking about this, when it's cold.
Yeah, I was going to say,
I feel horrible.
How do you lot deal with the cold?
I suffer, man. I say it on the show all the time. I say it all the time.
As in the blacks?
This guy.
Personal questions. No, because I wonder, because like for me, I quite like the winter actually. I quite like it because it's a different kind of time, and you got to wrap up warm, but you can actually really enjoy it. But I know a lot of people, they hate the winter.
Yeah, I can't.
It's miserable, and even like people can't stand the rain. Like not the autumnal, but the kind of the greyness and the cloudiness.
Okay,
And a lot of people say they fly in and the clouds, you go through the clouds and all of that. It's all right. Whereas I don't particularly mind, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
For me, it's like my hands get stiffer, my demeanor's just, I'm just not.
Seasonal
Yeah.
depression and all of that. That's a real thing, you know.
Yeah, I know people got that SAD thing, innit, right? But
Yeah.
I've never been diagnosed. I don't think I've got that, you know what I'm saying? But it's just, I see the stark difference between when the sun's out and when it's not.
I'll tell you, so this I wouldn't say I suffer from seasonal depression at all, but this last year, or this winter that we've just had, oh man, I think it was the darkness, I think. It was a different kind of darkness, I think, that got to me this year, actually. Normally I'm okay, you get up early, but it's like you leave, it's dark, you come back, it's dark. You can't go out when it's light, so it's interesting. But no, I'm thinking about that point on Chernobyl. That's crazy when you think, that is insane as a point, actually, that now the melanin on the fungus, and I imagine that fungus has been there for a long time as well.
So it's evolved that. And I think fungus is interesting because fungus evolves really quickly, doesn't it? So that's one of the reasons why we've been able to see this literally within a couple of lifetimes, to see that this rapid evolution kind of like take place in front of us. And it actually highlights something that brings us back to the start of the conversation, which is in and around messaging. So remember I was talking earlier about the fact that, you know, the white-owned establishment tend to advertise their strengths, but when it comes to their ailments, they tend to say everybody suffers from this. And this is one of the big reasons why we don't know enough about our own skin. We don't know about melanin, because melanin is so advantageous that to advertise its strengths is seen as threatening to the establishment. That's what people need to understand. Like, it's very advantageous. So they don't want to go around saying, hey, you guys, you superhumans. You know what I mean? They don't want to do that. So they'll prefer to,
it's a question.
Stuff it away in this little study in the corner over here, and you've got to really do a lot of digging. Like the amount of digging that I had to do to find out, all on separate papers, because I couldn't find a single one paper that has listed all of the benefits of melanin, you know?
But I know you think that's the same reason, us not knowing enough about melanin and stuff is why you can't make sweeping statements like black people don't get skin, or black people back home, I can't remember exactly how you phrased it, but don't get skin cancer.
Well, we don't get it at a rate that... So I guess when I was saying that, to be clear, I was addressing a misinformation dialogue that's out there. And I think if you're not suffering from that misinformation dialogue, I totally understand that. You know. But the bottom line is, like I said, I'm responding to things that I've put out there. I literally put in black people melanoma. You can do that in fact, do that now on YouTube. Put in black people melanoma, yeah? And then when you see the top, I don't know how many news articles come back saying black people are at risk, black people are more at risk, then we can revisit this discussion, because acting like this is not a piece of information that is being put out is false, because it is a piece of information that's being put out. It's being put out and we know it's false sitting here, but it is affecting people. And it is affecting black people to the point that they think, oh my God, I'm at risk of skin cancer. Oh, I better rub my kids down in SPF, otherwise they're going to. So that's why I'm quite strong and I'm quite strident about the fact that I'm going to go out there and say, no, you do not need SPF. And yes, it is banned in my household. That's a choice. And people can say that's wild or this, that, and the other. But I make sure I let my kids know, no, you do not need that. In fact, I even, and this is going to sound really extreme to you, my kids' school, when my kids were in primary school, they tried to do this blanket directive. Oh, it's going to be 26 degrees today. Make sure your kid's wearing SPF and wearing a sun hat. And I made a point of not sending him to school with either.
No sun hat.
Yeah,
No,
no
not even
sun
a hat.
hat. No.
Oh.
Sweat, child, yeah? Sweat like you're in Nigeria. So I sent them to school, but I sent them with a note. And I said, listen, please, like, don't give my child this false messaging. I understand what's going on, blah, blah, blah. But when it comes to my kids, they are well adapted to survive a little bit of sunlight. So they'll be absolutely fine. And I know that's going to sound really extreme to some people. Some people are like, oh, she just said, but these are the battles that I choose to pick because I'm not going to minimize the strengths that God has imbued me with and imbued my children with and go, oh, no, you know, don't you know, this is what they are. You know, we're melanated people. At every opportunity, you disparage us for being melanated people. You take away from us of being melanated people. And then the actual physical and biological strengths we have, you want us to diminish those and pretend that they don't exist. No, I'm sorry. I don't need SPF. Black people don't need SPF. And SPF, by and large, is going to cause more harm than good unless, like you just stated, on an aesthetic level. But on a medical level, you would be better off if you wanted to protect or have more balanced skin. You would probably be better off finding a natural alternative. And there are kind of sunblocking alternatives out there that can kind of sunblock and help with hyperpigmentation that don't contain the plastics and the things that SPFs do. But SPFs have to be really harsh in order to protect non-melanated skin from UV rays, because white people have virtually no protection. They have the inverse problem that we do. Okay, so what you hear around messaging a lot of the time. So I know I'm rambling a bit, but it's going to this point. What you hear around messaging is people will hear even the phrase sun protection. Do you know that's loaded? Yeah, because it essentially says you need protection from the sun. You'll hear words like sun damage. Once again, that's loaded. All of these words are applying to a certain demographic. Okay, sun protection, sun damage, so people have got this idea that the sun is this malignant being that's out to kill all of mankind and we need to slather ourselves in this cream to protect. And really, that messaging is not a messaging that we ancestrally would have had. You know, the sun was something that is a life giver. The sun is something that plants, chlorophyll, they love. You know, it's a part of photosynthesis because they need sunlight. Black people, and, you know, I shouldn't say black, melanated people, it's the same thing. The sun should be out there as a life-giving force, and yet you have all of this negative messaging around the sun. Now, the reason that exists is because, essentially, and it's good that you spoke about the colour spectrum earlier. Think about the colour spectrum. The colour black absorbs all colours, yeah? And the colour white, and obviously no one's white and no one's black, yeah? We are brown and we're cream, okay, I know that. But the colour, let's just talk about extremes. The colour white reflects, exactly. So it reflects everything. And that could bring us on to the vitamin D, but that's a whole nother argument about vitamin D synthesis and how that's being oversold again, because there's studies that disprove that as well. But let's just keep it on the level. White people's skin, essentially, it's been proven that the harmful rays, black people, as soon as the sun hits the skin, or melanated people, all of the or a majority of the spectrum of sunlight and UV is absorbed into the skin, and they convert the parts that's useful into energy and different things. But the bottom line is none of it penetrates to a point where it's harmful.
Well, you can't convert anything into energy, by the way.
Say again?
You can't convert anything into energy.
Go on, correct me.
Well, it's thermodynamics, right? Energy is just there.
Oh, okay, energy, yeah.
So
So
let's
it just
not,
changes
you cannot
form.
create
yeah,
energy.
so it's kind
right?
of like,
So,
yeah, I know.
You transfer energy because it's good. No, I just want to say, like, just
no, that's good. That's good.
I get the point about it, because I don't think anyone goes around saying the sun is a malignant actor. Even I get the point about calling it sunscreen and everything else, or sun protection is implying that the sun has some negatives. I mean, I don't think the sun has negatives. I think it's just dealing with the power of the sun. So like the fissions, the nuclear fissions, hydrogen fissions, things like that, the ultraviolet rays, that is just a product of the sun doing its thing. I think that's what I would like to think that's what most people think about when they talk about sun blockers and things like that. You're not blocking out the sun. I don't think it's not
anti-sun.
Because when you get a bottle, I've actually got some in my bag actually because I'm just gonna go on walks. And
So do I.
I got some SPF here. We've all got, but it says UVA and UVB protection basically. So, to the point about because, to suggest that the sun is this malignant thing is, that's crazy. I hope even Fox News wouldn't even want to be coming up with that.
I think that's why, I'm not really getting on board this conversation because it just all sounds like very extremes, and maybe it's just not stuff that I've heard. But the people that I talk to, and people from what I know, people are not anti-sun. They don't think the sun is going to kill them or they need to run away from the sun. It's more just being in this, there's just effects of the society we live in. Climate change is a thing, pollution is a thing. There's certain places that you go to, even around the UK, with better water than somewhere else. And so people take the steps that they need to take. Do you know what I mean? They take the steps they need to take for their skin, of what works for their skin. So I don't think... I don't know.
Because the other, no, go on. No. Because I was going to say that even the problem we have in the UK, even from a weather perspective, is we deal with 4 weather systems, northeast, southwest, broadly anyway. And if you listen to the shipping forecast, you will know that. And again, I would encourage people to listen to the shipping because you understand the weather systems in the UK and how they change and alter and everything else. With that, we obviously have a lot of clouds because we're in the northern hemisphere, which means we're not exposed to a lot of sun. So unlike when we're in Iberia, for example, Spain and Portugal, where there's obviously sun, 250 days out of the year, that's something that the body can be acclimatized to, right? People that are back home, they're acclimatized to it because the sun is there constantly, especially if you're on the equator, actually. And people will say the equator is not the hottest part of the world because you get a tropical effect, right? And things like that. So that's even different. We don't have that kind of tropical effect. We do sometimes get tropical effects come up, but an example is the reason why the UK often has a very chilly effect. One, because think about the pressure we get from the Atlantic on the west, right? So you notice when you fly back from New York or something to London, the quickest they've ever done is 4 hours and a bit, right? From the jet stream, you're getting that, right? So that's that whole breeze coming over. To the other side, and especially if you're in London and the east of England and things like that, it's very flat, right? So you're getting all of that chilly wind from Russia and from Chernobyl that way coming over. So we're getting these chilly effects. We don't really get the sun that often, which is why this year has been, so far anyway, been exceptionally different. One, I say very early summer. We didn't have any April showers, which we really should have if you think about the way it normally works. We haven't had that. So now the sun is out in a fuller force compared to what we used to. And I think it's going to get even hotter. I think we might break records. Maybe we'll see soon. People's bodies aren't acclimatized to that. We've just come out of a crazy dark winter where it's cold. And now we're here and people are like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So even if we're here as melanated people, it's sort of for me, it's kind of especially if I'm outside, I'm out and about, I'm actually out in the sun. I'm like, man, I just need to, and I'd love to know actually what alternative products you think are out there actually that could be, because, and again, to the point about the plastics and things like that, that makes because there's loads of microplastics in food. I saw something the other day that was saying even tea bags. I love a tea. I haven't had my tea this morning, so we'll get a tea. There are microplastics in tea, so when you pour hot water out, even into the tea bags, there are plastics that leak out, and we drink those plastics, right? Obviously, if you're drinking out of...
And that's a problem for me, because I drink a lot of tea.
So that's the thing, and even with water, so the bottles of water that we drink, we think we're good, but we just, if you have water that is out there enough, you're going to get plastics leak into it. So hence why some people prefer to drink glass bottles and stuff like that, and things like that. So the point of misinformation, I completely understand, and I think it's a very valid point. I think the point about if someone's coming with these sweeping generalizations, which could come from, because as you think about it, right? You're right. The media, as we know it, is just a playground for rich billionaires to share their propaganda. That's what it is, right? You should go look up. There's a man in France who owns. His name is Patrick Drahi, right? You should look him up. Patrick Drahi. He's French and Israeli, I think. and he owns media networks, right? We obviously know about the Murdochs. Even something that makes me laugh is that the FT is technically Japanese. Financial Times is owned by Nikkei, right? The government blocked, I can't remember which paper, I think it was The Independent, I might be wrong, but the Saudi consortium.
Telegraph, I think
it might have been.
Yeah.
And they've blocked that, right? So to the point about, and let's not talk about the Foxes, and it's probably worse out there in America. Actually, I think it's probably bad here. It's just dressed up differently, right? But to that point about misinformation, I wholeheartedly accept that. But I think, I think you made a good point earlier on about there isn't enough study into the power of melanin, because one of the things when you said about the sun was, if we really harness it, that's something I think about, right? On like this kind of like, what's the word? Metaphysical level, right? If we can really harness the power of the sun, we wouldn't really need electricity now, would we? You think about it, right? We wouldn't really need it if we could really. So there's those kind. So that point I accept as well, actually. But I don't think. But yeah, that's kind of my viewpoint. Yeah. So,
Even to add, sorry.
Go.
I was gonna say, even like with SPF and stuff, like I'm pro SPF, but I'm not pro all SPF because I'm not pro bad products. I think I've spoken about the app I use for like my skincare products and stuff like that, and it lets me know like how many harmful products. It basically it's what's the word? It judges it, I guess. I can't find what I'm looking for, but it rates it out of 100. And then lets you know if it's bad, if it's excellent, and it lets you know like what harmful ingredients are in there, what harmful chemicals, like essentially the making of it basically. So not all SPF is good SPF.
I'm glad you mentioned that because I remember the first time we might have spoke about this in the show, yeah. I believe Priscilla was here. This is like maybe 2.5 years or so. Years ago.
That was the beginning.
And we only briefly touched on it, right? Because obviously I was saying I don't use SPF and all that sort of stuff, right? And I believe she or maybe one of you guys was talking about black-owned SPF stuff, yeah. So what I was going to ask is, could there be SPF for black people that doesn't worry about the skin cancer stuff, and is more so just about maybe the hyperpigmentation stuff that I guess some melanated people go through? And number two, the other thing I was going to mention is, I think what you're saying, it goes even deeper than the whole SPF discussion. I think it kind of goes into what Tom was basically deducing from it, about the power of misinformation. Yeah. Just yesterday, as I was, just thinking about today's show, I got an advert came up on the screen, minding my business, watching YouTube. I can't remember the skincare, the brand, but it talks about, protect yourself from the UV, which is, I believe they said something crazy, like 85% of people suffer from skin aging, because of the UV. And immediately, because of, again, probably, I'll ask Brent to put it in the description, but Andrew's got like a short documentary in it that you sent to me that breaks down a lot of this stuff, and you actually see the information that's been put out to the public. Absolutely. That is for everyone. Now, if you've got the wherewithal, you can say, this is not for me. But if you're not thinking that, you're thinking, wow, 85% of us suffer from skin aging.
But why wouldn't you suffer from skin aging? That happens naturally though.
But
Like everyone's skin ages.
Sorry, aging due to the sun, I should
UV
say.
induced,
Yeah, exactly, due to the sun, right?
Sorry, Jackie, I haven't yet introduced anybody in the Discord, but we can still hear you. So if it is that you can just be patient, I will come to you just now.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? So obviously, there'll be skin aging because we're all mortal human beings. That's, that's going to happen. But we're surely not going to suffer from the same things as people who are like melanin. We see when, especially the Brits go to Spain and they spend a lot of time, we see how they look after.
They look like leather handbags after.
You know what I'm saying? They don't look like us. You know what I'm saying? It's different. But the messaging is not saying for people who look like this or people who have this amount of composition of melanin, it's an overall message that goes to all of us. And so what I'm saying is not to say people are silly or it's nothing to do with that. It's just more so saying when we're all saying that, this is not necessarily in a room but in the chat, and just people who will listen to the show, that the information Andrew's saying is wrong. Did we ask the question when we were told about SPF and how we should use it? Do you get what I'm saying? We didn't. We just said, okay, yeah, it's good for this, it prevents skin cancer. And yes, it may help with the hyperpigmentation because certain things we try as human beings. So for example, I don't want to put words into your mouth, Esther, right? But you would have seen how SPF, how your skin was without it versus with it. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
definitely.
And you can make the conclusion for yourself. But there's certain things like the skin cancer that, God forbid, none of us will suffer from now, that subconsciously we're also thinking is protecting us from. And that's simply because we were told it in the media, maybe in news, but also from brands that are selling us a product.
Yeah.
Do you get
I
what I'm
can't-
saying?
But I
Let
think
me-
that's
let me
something
jump on that.
So
So-
sorry, but that's something that everyone has to do though, because if you're being sold a product, ultimately these are businesses, and ultimately their goal is to make money, right? So there are things that will be like, oh, as a woman, you should buy this.
Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't think I need that, and so as an individual, I should do my own research.
Yeah.
I think the issue I have with conversations like this, when it comes to like black people thinking that something doesn't apply to them, it's not that. Let's do some research about how it can apply to me, or how it might be different for me. It's that's just for white people. For black people, it's absolute bullshit. And and we see that it feeds into so many areas of our community.
Yeah.
We see that with mental health. When people talk about mental health and they're like, oh, obviously, attitudes are improving, which is great. But back in the day, it was always like, oh, that's the white people illness. Oh, it's only white people that It's what. But it isn't though, because a lot of the things that we saw in our day, and we attributed to, it's just a demon. Oh, it's just the devil. Oh, it's evil spirits.
Yeah.
Those are mental health illnesses. And I think that's always my issue. I'm not saying that you should see something in the media and just say, oh yeah, that's gospel.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. However, the question things as it relates to you, because whatever my skin conditions are, if a cream comes and a black person says, this cream is for black people only, I'm not going to see that and think, oh, I'm safe then. I still have to see how it relates to me and
100%.
with the skin
so
conditions that I have. So
yes.
there's nothing wrong with that message, but I think the issue is that it's the extreme. So for example, like even you saying your children's school said put SPF and bring a sun hat, and you're like, no SPF and no sun hat. That's an extreme. Like that is an extreme reaction. And I think with black people, like we're so defensive when it comes to things, because the same reason why you're saying why didn't people question why they have SPF? Okay, well now I'm in a questioning mood. I'm going to question why you're telling me I don't need SPF.
And that's
like,
fine.
do you get what I mean?
Okay,
but it works. It works both ways. Like it just works both
But
ways. But
sometimes
people have to
it's
do
that.
things that's for them. Like if you
Facts.
don't want to wear SPF, if you go in the sun and all your blemishes are cured and stuff like you're in the river now, love that for you. I absolutely love that for you. That's great.
Yeah, man.
However, though, it is so dangerous. It's so dangerous to make sweeping statements when you don't know your neighbor's issues. You don't know what your neighbor's dealing with. Forget about hyperpigmentation. There's other great things that I'm sure wearing SPF has helped other people with. It's protected them from, and whatever the case is. You can't say because you don't know, because that's the same way you started. Sorry, just 1 second. You started off by saying black people in Nigeria don't get skin cancer. We don't know. The medical records don't even. What? They were saying there wasn't that much people were really dying from COVID.
Okay,
We didn't know it's spreading. So my issue with these conversations is just you can't. Your response to getting information from white media cannot be, well, that information is automatically anti-black and so it doesn't apply to black people.
Yeah.
It does, because my esthetician is black.
Yeah.
My esthetician who studies skin, went to school and everything, and whatever the case is black. The person who trained her mentor, is black. Like, there's black doctors.
Facts. But we also
can
spoke about this.
Can I
Go on.
jump in? I want to jump in at this point. So first of all, I think I'm going to address the point being made regarding, oh, it's dangerous to put information there and everyone needs to digest it for themselves. But I think that doesn't stop people on this platform from, oh, it's going to be sunny tomorrow. Black people, make sure you put your sunscreen on.
Okay, we're
It's
off
going to
again.
be sunny. So all due
Brent,
respect.
we cut off again. Sorry, bro.
All right, give me 1 second.
Yeah. I think we're back.
All right, and we're back. Sorry, people.
No worries. So I think one thing, on the one hand, it's like, well, it's dangerous messaging for me to say black people don't need sunscreen, irrespective of if I've got the reports and the papers to support it. But then you don't need the same kind of rigor or checks when you go out promoting SPFs, which a lot of black people do. Oh, make sure you put your SPF on. It's got to be a hot and sunny day today, black people. Now, I, on the inverse, find that messaging dangerous. So then we're kind of going to be at an imposition there, because I think your messaging is dangerous when you're telling people and advising black people to put SPF on when clearly it's a personal thing.
But that's the thing that you just said the word advising. I'm advising them.
And I'm advising as well.
No, you're not advising. You're telling people.
No.
Okay, sure.
I'm not. I'm advising.
Sure.
I'm saying from the research I've done, black people don't need it. In fact, I'm not even advising or telling. I'm saying here's what the research says.
Don't need it, and that's advice.
No, this is what the research says, not what I'm saying. I'm not medically qualified. I don't have any of those qualifications, but I can tell you what the medical papers say about rates of melanoma and the types of melanoma that black people contract, and whether or not SPF is beneficial or harmful for melanated skin. And the reports are all pretty unanimous. And just to be clear as well, when I just Googled black people melanoma, that's all I Googled. The first, so you got an AI overview, which I just ignore those generally. But if you look at the first thing that people also ask, it gives you that list of things that people also ask. The first thing that people also ask, is melanoma more common in black people? Now, if this was such an obvious thing, then why is that the number one thing that people are asking? The number one thing people are asking is not, do black people contract it? They're saying, is it more common? So clearly there is something to what I was saying regarding the messaging around what people believe about melanoma. Okay, it's been a very effective and sustained campaign to believe black people are physiologically deficient to our counterparts. And it's not just in this case of melanoma. You even touched on the COVID-19, and I could go into that because I read the Public Health England report as soon as it came out in 2020. A lot of black people didn't read it. Oh, we all read reports. No, we don't. I read the Public Health England report that came out in 2020, and it didn't say that black people were more... In fact, there's not been a single report that's came out that has said black people are more susceptible to COVID-19. Sorry, I said that word there. It's polyglot.
That's fine. The melanoma thing. They are more likely to be. They're more likely to be diagnosed with melanoma in latter.
In later stages. So here's the issue. Black people have got a higher mortality rate of melanoma. So remember, first of all, there's two things. They group melanoma into this big, cutaneous melanoma into this big group, okay? That includes UV-induced melanoma and acral litiginous melanoma, which I explained earlier. Black people tend to contract acral litiginous melanoma at a much higher rate as a group. Now, higher rate doesn't mean higher in numbers. We still, even that form of melanoma, we still get that less than white people do. But it's a higher rate for us because we get the other forms of melanoma so low that it looks like we've got a disproportionately high amount of acral litiginous melanoma.
It's a lower quantum, but a higher rate.
Exactly. Yeah. And acral litiginous melanoma, first of all, has a higher mortality rate. And secondly, it tends to be contracted at a very late stage because it'll just be like a little dot on your hand. Like you wouldn't think that you had skin cancer until maybe something starts going wrong with your body or it starts crumbling away. And then by that point, it's really late stage in its development.
If I dissect everything you said, it seems to me that your problem is more the kind of eugenics agenda that's been thrown around, hence your counterpoints. Because if you're saying that this is a violent suggestion about black people, then you're saying this feeds into kind of a eugenics agenda that there is a superior race.
I wouldn't say...
No, because I just want to say...
I wouldn't use the word eugenics. I know where you're going with it, but I wouldn't use the word eugenics. I would more lean into the fact of... I don't think this issue is specifically targeted at black people. I do think that when it comes to Western Europeans, they have a superiority complex. And they want to always be viewed as always want to be viewed as the most strong or the most superior kind of race out there, and all of their messaging supports that. And it goes through. The medical industry is the most guilty of this.
No, for sure.
And actually, I wanted to touch on the whole medical thing as well, because I used to live in Qatar, so I used to live out there for a few years, and I had my first daughter out there. She's 16 now. I had my first daughter out there, and when she was born,
Sorry, did you say 16?
yeah.
How old are you?
I'm not gonna say on this.
Sorry, SPF, bro.
Oils, my friend, oils. That's the answer. No, so when she was born, my daughter was born by the time she was a few months, and I'm not going to go into what caused it, but she developed chronic dermatitis. Okay, now this is a very extreme skin condition in children. She used to have, basically her skin used to be all down her arms. It's like an extreme form of eczema. All down her arms are really crusty. We used to put a bodysuit on her, and it used to weep. Her skin used to weep. So basically, we'd end up peeling the bodysuit off her every night. That's how bad it was. So we took her to a whole bunch of dermatologists, and they all recommended lots of different things. Now, one of the things that dermatologists regularly recommended for my daughter, remember this is out in Qatar, was skin lightening creams. Yeah? So so you know, if you've traveled a bit and you've been out to Qatar, you know that out in the Middle East, skin lightening creams are basically skin cream. It's probably, they're more common than SPF. Like, everybody is concerned with lightening their skin. So this whole kind of like idea that black people bleach, black people out of all of the melanated people in the world, play with their complexion less than anybody else out there. Asians and Middle Easterns bleach endemically. It's just sold off the shelf, basically. They buy all these skin lightening creams. So we would constantly have these dermatologists say, oh, put this on her face and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I'm not putting skin lightening creams on my daughter. Yeah. So after going through a whole liturgy of different experts, different professionals, and these are ones that we're paying through the nose for, by the way.
It's not the NHS.
We end up, and they're good doctors as well, because we're back to the UK a couple of times in this process as well, seeing dermatologists. We end up figuring out that it was essentially dietary. She had a load of allergies.
Really?
Yeah, she had a load of allergies that we weren't aware of. But we found that out ourselves, you know, just sleuthing away and pulling stuff out of her diet. And then finally we kind of like figured out, all right, when she's not eating these things or consuming these things, and bear in mind, there was a period of time that my wife was breastfeeding as well, so she had to stop eating certain things. But when these things weren't being consumed, the skin started clearing up. Now, she's 16 years old now, perfect skin. We sorted that out by the time she was like maybe 2 years old. Like perfect, clean skin. The point I'm making is that being a medical professional in an area, particularly like when it comes to, doesn't guarantee that you're going to give sound advice. These are people, we're talking about seeing people who are specialists in kids' skins, but like we saw all of them. And none of them turned around to us and went, oh, have you tried not eating this?
I think,
do you understand what I mean? Like, none of them
that.
were able to find that well, I wouldn't say simple solution, because it was a very painfully found solution, but we found that solution. And I'm so glad that we went through that process, because it just compounded the fact that I already knew that when it comes to answering many of our issues, you have to do the due diligence yourself.
True.
You have to do the hard work. You can't just go away and go, oh, well, this is what's being put out there. This is the narrative. You have to challenge things. So going back to what I was saying about Public Health England, because I think this is quite important. They put out a report in 2020. And as a result of this report, because all of these black people that claim that they didn't read, a load of black people believe that we get COVID-19 or we are more at risk from dying at COVID-19 than anybody else. All the report said was that death rates were higher amongst blacks and Asians when you don't take comorbidities into account. The comorbidities were things like the usual suspects, diabetes, blah, blah. One second. I'll be done in a second, yeah? All of these other things that people were dying of because the hospitals were closed because of COVID. Yeah? That's what that report proved. And let me give you another soundbite from that actual report, because this is going to be very interesting to you. because this is quite an important soundbite and something that is not talked about. So let me give you this side. This is on the report. So it says here, ethnicity. People from, this is the Public Health England report that was released in 2020 about COVID-19. People from black ethnic groups were most likely to be diagnosed. Death rates from COVID-19 were highest among people of black and Asian ethnic groups. Now listen to the next sentence. This is the opposite of what is seen in previous years. What does that mean? When the mortality rates were lower in Asian and black ethnic groups than white ethnic groups. Has anyone ever heard that before? That before COVID-19, as a black or an Asian, your mortality rate was better than your white equivalent. Did anyone know that? I didn't know that. Yeah, and I keep my ears. That's a soundbite I would have known and memorized. This was not put out. But when they need to put it out as a part of the shock factor of putting out this study to say, oh no, now you guys are in trouble, they were willing to admit, actually, in general, when black people, Asians and whites go into hospitals, blacks and Asians are more likely to walk out and white people are more likely to die. That's what this report says, Public Health England 2020. Now, this isn't something that they're advertising, once again, because I've stressed the point that they do not advertise their ailments, or they're kind of like, when they have things that make them appear weaker than us, death they won't tell anyone.
Paper cuts, right?
Say again?
Death by 1,000 paper cuts.
Exactly.
You want to hide something from someone, you put it in a piece of text. So look, I've got a couple of things. One, in terms of the medical profession and not being able to adequately deal with black people, I think you see that in other areas as well. So one of the areas that's been studied is the issue of births and sad kind of infant mortalities. I've done a few studies in the US. I had a friend of mine that was an epistemologist, I think that's what the word is, looking into public health, got a master's in public, and was looking at that kind of paper. And there's a few papers in the US that kind of, and it's a growing area, referring to the fact that the treatment is different. And because the treatment is different, the outcome, unfortunately, is worse for black babies than their white counterparts, which is a thing. The second thing, though, in terms of the actual, when you look at the academic rigor, sometimes my issue with quantum and rate is that given that there aren't many black people in the UK compared to white people often, then you're going to have an econometric problem of the numbers being all wrong. Like, and we're really getting into it, right? Let's be honest. Like, we're really getting into it because ultimately, if I'm going to do a test, I'd like to, let's say I'm doing a test of 1,000 people, I'd like to do it 500 and 500. But if I'm doing it 200 and 800, then the quantum's going to be different and the rate, therefore, is going to be different. So therefore, there's an econometric problem. And then the question is, how did you really control for this? Did you do a difference in difference? What exactly was your control and how did you actually deal with this? And Esther's point earlier on about she put on the sunscreen, tried it, didn't have the sunscreen, tried it. That's her personal test and control on an individual level. But no, I mean, of course, like the issue is that I think, even when when you think about it, and there's there's text that suggests this, and I don't like to say studies prove this and prove that, because studies just make conclusions, it doesn't prove anything. Like you can't prove anything out of a study. Like when you're trying to measure something from an econometric standpoint, you want it to be blue. You want it to be your best, least. It's something blue. Like you want it to be like the most least biased estimator. But every estimator we use, and over that gives us controls and numbers and rates, they're biased, or there's something wrong with the data set, or something like that, right? Or everything is conflated to just London, because. And the other issue we have as well is that a lot of the time measuring data by race often is particularly difficult when it comes to outcomes. If you look at kind of currently the discussion, or some of the discussions in the UK about kind of like the rape gangs and things like that, opens up a whole different kind of worms. Right? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Because it opens. So that's one of the other issues, as I think as well. That's kind of some of the issues with the studies that come out as well, because really, it's not the other element as well on a secondary level is not just critiquing the study, but critiquing how the study was measured. which is harder in itself because now you got to go put it in R or Stata or whatever, look in the data, like kind of what the public health guys do and say, well, this is this, and this is how I control for it and retest it and everything else. So that's kind of one of the issues of the study, because ultimately, if you're ever trying to do something where you're trying to control for black people and white people, naturally by numbers, you're going to get rates and quantums that are very different until you get the same numbers, right? Yeah. It's like you flip a coin and eventually I'm going to get 50% heads, 50% tails, but that just doesn't happen. You do it 100 times, it might be 70, you know what I mean? So even on that technical level, shows you some of the issues that are there. And to that point about the fact that, the question is, and I estimated this point earlier on, about has there actually been enough studies pertaining to just black people and issues with SPF versus their white counterparts that have a decent control that you can actually say, actually, the numbers stick by it, because it's sort of like, this is the other thing, right? People come and say, this is the thing, like, they're lies, and then there's statistics. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics, right?
Yeah.
The point about the media, what you're talking about, that's the lies and the damn lies. Then we've got the statistics, right? Yeah. Like, people can manipulate statistics in a way that suits them or suits their agenda, right?
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So I think everyone has to have a personal diligence. Now, to the point about like using creams and other things from the perspective of protecting yourself from the sun, it's something everybody should go and explore, to be honest.
Absolutely.
And my thing is this, even the thing about you sent your kids in with a note and no sun hat, that's your personal liberty that you're whether I agree with it or not, I'm going to let you run with it, right? Because that's, and again, that's kind of my belief when it comes to things like freedom of speech is, freedom of speech is absolutely free and should never be relinquished. But it doesn't mean if someone says the wrong thing, something won't happen to them, you know what I mean? Yeah. But that level of, do you know what, you're at right and liberty to have that opinion.
And that was more,
and you know what I mean?
think that was more for my kids.
No, I hear you.
I wanted my kids to understand that there's nothing wrong with the fact, you don't have to diminish yourself and make yourself appear weaker to make people feel comfortable. They shouldn't be threatened by the fact that you don't need to do that. Do you understand what I mean? Like this is for them to deal with. It's not for you to deal with as my kids. Yeah, you don't need that, so I'm going to send you to school. Now, when it comes to the, you made a really good point about kind of like control groups and how, when it comes to data is constantly being manipulated. Because I'm in the kind of the field of anthropology, that's kind of what I do on a daily basis in terms of my research. There's no more fields where you get data being manipulated than when it comes to the area of anthropology, i.e. people taking data, and I spend so much time correcting false narratives that have been created in that field that it does cross over when I do subjects like this, which aren't my speciality, and I'm quite happy to point out this isn't my speciality, but I'm also I've got a very good kind of like radar for when data is being manipulated. And I knew straight away, so for instance, that's why I brought up the COVID 2020 report, because I knew straight away, no, this is data manipulation. You're trying to make not just black people, but you're trying to make the entire world feel as though, that was the most lazy, that report was the most lazy and manipulative reporting that you could do in the medical industry.
But also, when was that? Around. Just for slander and libel purposes, I will ask a question though, is when that report was made 2020?
August 2020.
I mean,
it was the high, and
you've got to cut a little bit of slack in light
no,
of
but the
when,
point is that, the point is that there was no rush. And I'm glad that you say that. There was no rush, exactly, to make a race-based report. So this was feeding an agenda. It was, and it came out around the same time, just like Esther was saying, when black people were like, we don't even get COVID in Africa. Do you know what I mean? So they were like, oh yeah, we're gonna knock the wind out of their sails with this one. Do you know what I mean? And they come out with this report, and anyone who has any kind of ability to just kind of like filter information and see data could see what was going on in that report, which is what I was able to see straight away. I was like, well, look, don't tell us without the comorbidities, tell us with the comorbidities. That's why, everyone was dying from the thing.
Because I think
regardless
I
of
think
what
that's the other thing as well. Was I
for.
think kind of during the height of COVID, I think there were plenty of co-mortalities, especially with the elder population.
Exactly.
Who may have already had some underlying health issues.
Yeah.
And then something which...
Or weren't getting treatment because the hospital was closed.
Exactly.
There were so many things, so many comorbidities, so many other things to consider as to what was causing people to be exposed. And yet the media and Public Health England chose to focus on race. And I think that was agendaed, and I think that was very, very disingenuous, because there was a lot of other things they could have focused on there. Do you know what I mean? But they chose to focus on race. So that to me is when, even I remember the Home Secretary. I remember he came out and he made a statement and he was like, Black lives matter, but in the case of COVID, they really do. And I was like, dude, like you're not even comfortable saying what you're saying here. Like you've never said the word black in your life, and yet now when it comes to this situation, you're ready to make a public statement. Like we don't. England's population didn't need that at that moment in time. That was a choice that they were making. Brent, could you share? Could you share that table that I first sent to you? Because I want us to maybe look at the data here as well, because this is quite important.
I'll open up the Discord just.
Oh my gosh, Jackie's still there. Yeah,
Jackie and Badu.
working.
Yeah.
So this.
I'll try to go in a minute.
I just want to quickly explain what people are seeing on the screen. I've highlighted kind of like the important parts. I need to get on my phone because I can't see it. I've highlighted the important parts. So this is just so people know that the numbers aren't being fudged here. At the top in green is the West African. So the first column that says 400,000 is actually 400 million because you times it by 1,000. Okay, so that's population, 400 million. And the next column is the number of cases, okay? And that's just like 955. So Western Africa, population 400 million, cases of melanoma 955. Now that's all case melanoma. So that includes the acral litigious melanoma that I was talking about, which is the main concern for us. Now I want you to scoot your eyes down to the bottom blue bar, which is Western Europe. Western Europe, population 200 million. So that's half the population. So in order to get the same ratio, we'll just times it by 2 because that'll give us 400 million. But let's say 200 million. Number of cases, 65,000. All case melanoma. So if we times Western Europe's population by 2, we'll get 400 million and 130,000 cases of melanoma. So 1,000 in Western Africa, 130,000 in Western Europe. That's 130 times the likelihood of contracting skin cancer as a Western European, as a Western Nigerian. And that's aside from the fact that Western Nigeria is literally along the equator, i.e. the highest exposure to UV index that in the world, yeah? And yet we have, so compound that, all right? UV-induced melanoma, people who are exposed to the sun day in, day out for 365 days a year versus people who get it for maybe 1 month of the year, and yet they are 130 times more likely to contract melanoma than black people in Western Africa.
According to that study at that particular...
And this is, let me read the study. Sorry, let me give the...
You can't just... This is the thing, you can't just say it's 130 times, like, based on a study at that particular point in time.
Okay, wait, let me just give you the name of the study.
What's the incident rate? Can you go with the other stuff and what the...
So the study is the global burden of cutaneous... So this is dated 2020, by the way. The global burden of cutaneous melanoma in 2020. This is the official JAMA. So this is published on the Journal for Medical Anthropology. All right, so you can check out, this is like the official study that anyone who was doing studies into melanoma would have looked into. This isn't like Steve. And this is like literally official rates of melanoma. So it's not according to that study. This is the one that World Health Organization, etc., they would have referred to this study to understand the rates. This literally is the global burden of cutaneous
Because the
melanoma in
WHO is
2020.
the most
So did
powerful
they-
I know, I don't
organisation
trust
in
them
the
either,
world.
but the
Like,
point,
you know.
the point
I
being
hear you.
that this is the data, okay? They're not, they have no interest in trying to minimize or underestimate the amount of exposure that Africans have. It would
They
have
might not, but then
served
their-
their agenda the other way
They might
around.
not, but then their study might not be valued though, because I would like. Did they set up a hospital and then over like a period of time see with people that came through? Like, if they're going to be collecting the statistics again from which I mentioned earlier, if they're collecting their statistics or data from Nigerian hospitals that are known to not provide the best treatment, that are known to actually have people pass away without correct diagnosis and stuff like that, then of course the validity of the study will have to be questioned.
Okay,
So where did they get those things from?
So I've only got a few minutes
this is,
left, guys.
I mean,
go on.
this is a peer. Sorry,
Go on, Jackie. I remember.
A few points. One, I agree with, I forgot the guy with the glasses name, sorry.
Andrew.
I do agree with him in an extent that we need to check how the negative effect of SPF on us versus the negative effect if we don't take SPF. Number one. Number two, we have ancestral defense. So with evolution, wherever you stay, you would have built a natural defense. Same way people that eat dairy they have a natural defense to dairy as more than we do, where our ancestors didn't eat dairy products. The other thing is, if we're dropping and not taking SPF, what did our ancestors use? Maybe they used shea butter. Are we using shea butter? So the defense systems that they would have done, sometimes maybe they work in a field at certain times. The height of the sun, maybe they're not there. Do you know what I mean? So there's so many different factors that we drop as a people, and now we're picking something else up. So if we're dropping SPF, what is it that our grandmothers use as a defense system? Is it the creams they use, the natural soaps they use? Is it natural creams they use? What is that I think we can't do either or. If we can't do none, if that makes sense. You can't
This is a beautiful point you're making, because I wanted to ask you, do you believe in protection from the sun?
Jackie or Andrew?
I don't know.
No, not you,
genuinely don't know. I don't have
Andrew.
enough
Yeah, well, that was the question I was going to ask the guests, whose points were very valid. But I would say, once again, this goes back to the messaging issue that I have. Do we need sun protection? And this might sound really kind of like random, but like, do plants need sun protection? Do
I agree with you on
animals
that.
need
If
sun protection? In
plants are
terms of
life and
we've
source.
evolved on this planet, like you
On
said,
that.
if we've evolved in hot climates, then why would we need protection from the sun? Maybe we just need better management of the sun
Yes,
as opposed to protection from it.
But some plants they wither and die if they're too hot. Some plants have natural defenses in the sun. So it depends on what the plant is, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's certain
So
plants
if
that
we
don't even
have a
need the sun in
natural-
order to go, so that's very...
Some plants are dry and they wither. They don't need any water. They don't need much water.
Also,
Some plants, they don't have enough water. They die.
Can I just clarify something in the study? Because just to confirm, this is the global burden of cutaneous melanoma in 2020 and projections to 2040.
Yep.
Correct? By Melina Armwood et al., JAMA, Dermatol 2022. Thank you very much. Thank you. So,
So it's also, I'm so sorry, I forgot.
It's because she has to go in it.
okay, no, sorry.
Huh?
I'm just curious.
Sorry, isn't it? When we the stats he's shown, I agree with you, Esther, in terms of we've got, because it's Africa, we've got to question blah blah blah. But it's so funny that we don't question when it's a Western published
Exactly.
publication. But when it's our own and it's proven positive, we query a lot more. But if it was proven negative, that actually black people die more in Ghana because of the mortality
That's not
rate.
fair. Can I respond to that?
Not for you, but in terms of
But also
in
just-
general,
let's go
within
on.
the
Give me
comments
1
as
second,
well.
I'm just going to reset it. It just cut off. Can you hear me now? All right, we're back. Wait. It takes a while. All right, now we're back. Go on.
It's not just Esther's point. It's even with COVID, how successful Africa was in managing it. It was dismissed and undermined as opposed to, we should have been the poster problem for, this is how you manage COVID. We used natural remedies and it worked, but it doesn't work for the pharmaceuticals because no one was, like, if you can grow your own medicine, how's the pharmaceutical companies going to make it? But with SPF, my opinion with SPF is, we may need different studies for us. So maybe the type of ingredients in, I think Esther, you said you tested certain things. The type of ingredients for us might be different from the type of ingredients that Sally might need to use. And also we might need to incorporate what our grandparents used, because they did use natural skin barriers. They creamed their bodies. So maybe, although we might say, oh, your skin's shiny, grandma, maybe it was our way of protecting ourselves. We didn't have the language for it.
All right, Esther.
I was gonna say, if the statistics was about Kenya or Uganda or South Africa or another African country that I don't have personal awareness of what the medical system is like, then I wouldn't have a reason I wouldn't question it. Do you get me? Like, I wouldn't question it in the way I did Nigeria, but I don't think it's fair to say that whenever it's white people's studies, we don't question it, because I would as well. If white people come and say that, you know, this is black, I would say, well, how many black people were involved in that study? And when it comes to the black people that were involved in that study, like, what ages of black people were involved in that study? There's always going to be questions when it comes to studies that are, or research that's done. So I think it's a bit reductive to the bigger point that's being made when you're bringing statistics about Nigeria, which has one of the worst healthcare in the world. Like, how am I just supposed to believe that people who can't even diagnose when people have lesser ailments are going to adequately diagnose skin cancer? Like, how am I going to believe that when I know people personally who have been misdiagnosed, whose stuff has been missed, who have actually had cancer and they've been told, oh, you know, it's just this, blah, blah, and then and then they go elsewhere, go to another country and find out it's stage 4 and you've only got 2 months to live. Like, if it was another country you're speaking of that I have no personal awareness of, then fair enough. But I don't think it's right to just bring it down to whenever it's black people, we criticize stuff, because it then goes back to the point I'm making, which is when black people receive information, we just say, oh, well, that's just for the white people. And then we go to the other extreme of it. And then what you're asking people to do, which is research and to read papers and do all these things, you're not necessarily doing that when you're thinking that the message from the white people or the studies on the white people is automatically anti-black. So I don't think that's a very fair thing to say. I think those statistics are, again, and you said it as well, when people do studies and they do research and then whatever it is, you are able to manipulate your data to show what it is, whatever it is that you want to. Yes, they might not have any motive to say that Europeans are more likely to get skin cancer, what the statistics were showing. However, though, I have to question the validity of that, because I know the healthcare system in the country that I'm from.
Okay, so
before you respond, to Jackie's point, you asked what were our ancestors using before the 20th century came around and SPF was introduced. So I've asked my...
The guy assumed...
Wait a minute. So I've asked my assistant. Yes, 100%. I have the pro version. Anyway, so in Africa, they used shea butter, red ochre, thank you, the Himba woman. And I had to Google that because I didn't know what they look like. And this is what came up. Yeah.
I'll give you a better one. Type in Hema tribe, Ethiopia.
Hema tribe, Ethiopia.
Because they put it on their skin.
How do you spell that?
Hamer.
Hamer. Okay, thank you.
So you can see how they apply it directly to the skin.
Lovely. Let me continue. Palm oil. In India, they use sandalwood paste, turmeric, neem oil. In Australia, the Aborigines, white clay and tree bark ash. In the Pacific Islands, coconut oil, banana leaves, and mud wraps. And Native American tribes, zinc-rich white clay, yucca root, and bear fat. And these are all properties that provide some UV blocking. So
they use this to protect themselves from the sun.
Yes. So before SPF, there is
some kind of so that means that even then people back then knew that there was some form of protection to have from the sun.
Yes,
And
and that's
we
what I want.
just
That's what I
did it.
wanted to
Like
know.
I
If it is
said,
that you
back to-
you believed in.
Of course, no. So this is back to
Because you
what I
said you
said
didn't want
earlier
your
about.
child to have any.
Yeah, but this is back
That's-
earlier
yeah.
to what I was saying regarding management of the sun. Remember, I supported by saying black people or Africans, not even black people, Africans in general don't lie out in the sun. It's not a practice ancestrally that we have. So when it comes to groups or tribes of people who spend extended periods of time in the sun, we're not stupid. We are aware that this big burning ball in the sky, will give you sunstroke. You will collapse, and it will, you can't just sit out there and there's going to be absolutely no consequence. You're not going to sit out there all day like a plant. So you absolutely have to have some management. We do need shade as human beings. Lions lie in the shade for a reason, not out in the sun. So yes, you absolutely do forms of kind of like sun management. People putting red ochre and stuff on their skin. Absolutely, it gives them much more, elongated time to.
I like
be
how
able
we've
to-
gone from sun protection to sun
Okay,
management.
I picked that.
Yeah, definitely.
I
Because
I like
of the
we've
management.
gone from sun,
Because of the management.
sun
I picked
protection
that.
to
Yeah.
sun management.
Yeah, because-
therefore it would suggest that sun the difference between sun management and sun protection is the lack of SPF. And the lack of the plastics and chemicals in them. That's what
I think
you're referring
the
to.
difference to
surely.
me is the fact that whether or not the exposure to the sun is going to be mortal.
But maybe it was mortal. That's why we do go in the shade. Maybe it is mortal. That's why we.
Well, I mean,
Yeah,
so
maybe
you
there
will
is
die
an
from.
element of
I mean, of
mortality
course,
there.
you're gonna die
Well,
from
Because they're in
sunstroke.
the
But the
sun more
point
than
is
we are
that
in this generation, if anything.
all the things that Brent read, can also be ingested. Shea butter, people cook
Yeah.
with shea butter. Or
They cook
coconut
with
oil,
palm
people cook
oil.
with coconut oil. So they're
Yeah.
not necessarily always going to cream their bodies, but they can ingest it and then get better qualities from it as well. So for example, if you don't send your kids with a hat and SPF, that you're rejecting Sally's sun management, but where's your sun management that you've picked up? What then do you give your kids as sun management? I think that's the point. You can't drop theirs and drop yours at the same time. What are you doing? What are you suggesting or telling black people to use instead of SPF, use shea butter. Instead of SPF, don't go out in the sun or don't go and tan, which is what a lot Sally's white people want to tan to get dark. But our aim is to glow and not necessarily sunbathe. We don't, as you said, it's not our culture to sunbathe. So would we naturally, even if the sun was bad, you would naturally not get it because you don't do the things they do with the sun. Your relationship with the sun is different.
That's a good point,
The
Jack.
sun could be bad. You don't know. We don't know that, but we don't have the same relationship. So
Well,
therefore, maybe we don't need the same treatment as they do.
Well, I think everything can be bad in, like they say, all things in moderation.
Moderation.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? So everything has the potential to be bad. But you have to understand not you in particular, because I think you get it quite well, but when it comes to melanoma, like going back to this case of, the white people's relationship to the sun in contrast to black people's relationship to the sun, it's a very stark contrast. On a scientific level, white people are pheomelanin dominant. Now, what I haven't touched on is the fact that studies have been done that have proven that pheomelanin is one of the main causes of skin cancer. Because essentially when the UV rays penetrate through white skin, the pheomelanin will start to attack the cells in the body. Okay? That's one of the things that causes skin cancer in white people. Black people do have pheomelanin, but we have very small amounts, and all of the harmful UV rays tend to be absorbed by the eumelanin. Okay, that's in our body. That's what does that's the dark pigment. So eumelanin is the dark pigment. Pheomelanin is like a reddish yellow pigment. Okay, which is why people turn red when they go in the sun as well.
Red
So-
and violet, isn't it?
Yeah. So that's what causes the redness. All right. But that same thing that causes the redness is the thing that causes the skin cancer. So I'm not out here saying, hey, black people, the sun's harmless, go and lie in the sun all day, get sun. I'm not talking about any of that. This is not about that. This is specifically about whether or not we need was the key word, SPF, and all of the medical research suggests that we don't need SPF. If you choose to wear SPF as a choice or as an alternative to other products, that's up to you. But the difference is white people need SPF. So can you see the difference here? The difference being one group of people need SPF, the other ones have a choice. We have, like we're doing now, we have a conversation to have. We have a discussion to have. How this is great what we're doing here. How do we how do we manage? Some people like it, some people suffer from different skin conditions, you know what I mean? I find that SPF is helpful for my hyperpigmentation, this, that, and the other. Can you offer me alternatives? These are all conversations that we can have, but they don't detract from the fact that we don't need SPF. Scientifically, we don't need it.
No, in their form. Because shea butter also has SPF, but in a lower form. But maybe the chemicalized form with all these plastics.
Because again,
it's not SPF.
No.
SPF is something specific.
No, hang on. So SPF, we're all talking about some protection factor,
Formula.
right?
Yeah, exactly.
Not formula. Well, factor, because some protection factor, 50 factor.
30,
so some protection factor.
Yeah.
SPF referring to the UVA and UVB rays, ultraviolet A, ultraviolet B, they're different. The rays coming through and the penetration from the radiation, and what all of these products, including shea butter, can do to prevent them from penetrating different parts of the dermis, right? Yeah. So even shea butter, like all of these products that Brent mentioned earlier, I don't know if you mentioned, would have there would be an SPF element to them.
To it.
It wouldn't be the manufactured stuff that we're getting out of Beiersdorf and we're getting out of AVMH and we're getting out of all of the. It wouldn't be that because it's a big pharma thing and somewhat different. Yeah. But all of these natural products would be there. It's like when people look into, what's the word for it? More like holistic health and things like that again, and people looking for holistic health options, various things. It's like people, it's like, you know, for example, one of the things that I read is turmeric being an anti-cancerous property, right? Now, I've seen it I've read it, I've seen it in a few papers. I can't qualify it. I'm not a scientist, but you know what? I think everybody should go and try it. I've had people in my family that have tried it and they found that it's worked for them. And they've actually done funny controls to say, before a scan, don't try it. Things show. After a scan, tries, and it shows less. And it might not work for someone else, but there is an alternative. And I was in the pub the other day. I was talking to an old guy that I see every now and again, and he was saying his son-in-law's gone. I said, look, have a look at this turmeric. I said, look, just there's nothing. You got nothing to lose, right? Because his son-in-law's in a bad way. I said, look, just try this. He looked at it. Oh, I'm going to look at this. So, you know, even to that point, you know, these products, or better or more original, I was going to say alternative, but that's too loaded. These original products like shea butter and things, you might be able to call them SPS 5 or 10. We don't know. I haven't measured it, right?
4 to 7.
47.
No, 4 to 7.
4
like
to 7.
It's between 4 and 7.
So it's good, you know. And now it's now. Don't get me wrong, because you think about it, you're right. The point you made earlier, to get SPS 50 means you have to put some really strong stuff in there, right? To get that kind of stuff.
Do you know what's interesting actually? Sorry, just on that. SPF 30 and SPF 50 do the same thing. It's like a 1%. I think SPF 30 is 97%, and then SPF 50 is 98%.
Really?
So if you wear SPF 30, it's like you're cool with SPF 50 as well. I tend to pick 50, but I think that's just like it's a psychological thing of like, oh, I'm just getting the more. But actually, all my decision always says she's like 30, 50, doesn't matter. It basically it's reached its peak. Basically,
and I just want to jump in as well. So going back to what the caller was saying as well, when it comes to the populations in Africa, first of all, that applying kind of different sun protection, this isn't universal in Africa. These are specific groups of people, specific ethnicities. There are far more that didn't apply anything. Okay, so just to be clear on that as well, this wasn't university in Africa, everyone wore red ochre. It's like, no, that's actually not true.
No, but then everyone in that section, they wore red ochre. In Ghana, they might have eaten shea butter, and then somewhere else they ate turmeric. So it's different for different reasons. That the land produces its natural defense systems for it. But also with the new technology, so if I've got an esthetician, I go somewhere, I buy all these chemicals on my skin, I might need more protection because of all the chemicals we're putting on. Like, so we layer women our skin routines like 5 different chemical products. Got AHA, so many different chemicals that we're absorbing in our skin. Maybe we do need SPF for that protective layer because we're wiping off we're stripping our skin of something else that then would affect the sun.
Okay.
It's similar it's similar to, you know, when we say, oh, we don't need deodorant, because our ancestors didn't need deodorant. Our ancestors didn't need aluminium, but they still had a natural defense system. So your ancestors weren't walking around smelling.
But
they might have used lemon, they might have used something else. So if you're not going to use natural deodorant, this is a random example. If you're not going to use natural deodorant because you said our ancestors didn't have it, what did your ancestors use? And
okay,
then
so
work that
I
out.
think let me finish my point. So I was gonna say that
Thank you,
it's not
guys.
universal, okay, in terms of what some groups using it and some groups not using it. And the point is that you keep talking about sun protection, but what I was explaining earlier regarding melanin is the sun protection. So when you're talking about SPFs, you're talking about essentially doing the job that melanin is already doing. So this is the thing. I didn't want us to go down this road where we now start discussing, well, what are they doing to protect from the sun, this, that, and the other? It's like, no, some were doing it, but a lot weren't. And melanin still works effectively as a natural sun protection. Brent, I sent you an image with loads of faces. Could you just pop that one on the screen really quickly? Because I want to show people via a UV light what the job of SPF is. So Brent's just put it on the screen. So this is the different, at the top left is the person's face unprotected, okay? And then what you're seeing is the gradual increase of sun protection. And as you can see, by the time we get to the bottom right, we have someone who is jet black. That's what SPF is doing, okay? So you have to understand the point being made is that it's doing what melanin is doing. Okay, it's essentially in the view of in the view of UV rays. Okay, when it comes down, when someone's covered in SPF, that's a black person. Do you understand what I mean? When it sees someone covered in SPF, UV rays essentially sees a black. It's doing the same thing. It's doing that job of absorption before it penetrates a certain level and causes damage to the cells. Now, going back to what we said earlier about the fact that fungus has evolved melanin in order to survive in radiation, that once again just compounds the fact that melanin has the capability to protect the skin from, UV-induced harm. And this is why, I could go into this back of, what did they use for protection? I'll answer you right now. I'm fortunate enough, I'm blessed enough to be able to holiday a lot, and I do spend a lot of time out in the sun, even when it's out over here. I'm like, I like to go for water. If the sun's out, I'm out. I don't use any form of sun protection, not even natural forms. I just don't. I'm being totally honest with you. I oil my skin, and that's it. I also, and this is going to gross some people up, but I don't care. I also don't use anything that contains sodium lauryl sulfate. That's a totally personal thing for me. I don't like any kind of bubbly stuff on my skin. I don't think bubbles are natural. So I wash with water every morning. I have a thorough cold shower with water. That's my wash every morning. Occasionally I'll introduce kind of soaps, but that'll be like if I've done something that's really gritty and I feel kind of like heavily dirty. But I try my best to keep my natural oils present. I was going to
say, do you use essential oils or anything like that?
I just cold shower wash and I just use basically a very kind of like thin layer of oil. That's it. And I've done that for years now, like literally decades. I've done that for about 2 decades now. That's all I've ever done.
The skin
I don't
good,
put any. Thank you. I don't put any sun protection on, whether I'm here or whether I'm in Africa. Okay, it's gone again. Yeah,
gone again. Your point that SPF is when applied, will get to black people where we naturally have melanin, right? But why has she put this on? Why has she decided to put this extra layer on?
Sun management.
Well,
Sun. So again,
absolutely, sun management. I get
that's my. So I think
But also culture. Can I add to that as well?
Yeah, go on.
Culturally, what no one's asking is the question here. That's what we like as Westerners like to do, like to make broad assumptions about what African cultures are actually doing. Has anyone gone to the Hema tribe or gone to the Himba people and asked why?
I mean, you're the anthropologist here, so
Yeah. But I said, yeah. So that's my point. It's like I've done some, from what I could. A lot of these tribes date back, thousands of years. You can see them on hieroglyphs on the walls in ancient Egypt doing exactly the same thing that they're doing today. So a lot of these are very ancient tribes, and there's an argument that they could be doing it for different reasons. It could be kind of like ancestral veneration, like just habits, cultures. So we don't know. We can make a lot of broad sweeping assumptions. Oh, look, well, they're protecting from. Okay, they could be protected from the sun. They may or may not be. It doesn't invalidate anything if they are. I'm just saying the point is that we probably need to do a bit more due diligence about what the purpose of their
if you're making
application was.
If you're making the point, I had a peek at that study, and that study actually gives estimations of deaths until 2040.
Yeah, and it looks grim, doesn't it?
No,
because they go up by about 10 times,
which is
expecting them to 10x.
Yeah, but that's just a mathematical run rate anyway. So you don't know what your discount factors are and stuff for it. So again, you got to question that as well. But the point about necessity, like if you're saying actually, if your point is saying that you think that for the sake of protection from, this is the thing, if you're qualifying what you've come in, this is what you just came in just guns blazing saying no need for SPF, which
you don't get skin cancer.
You don't get. But if you've come in and you've qualified it, and you said actually, look, if we're talking about a particular form of melanoma, cutaneous, right?
Cutaneous melanoma, they're all called cutaneous melanoma. Cutaneous essentially just means the skin, but you've got different forms of melanoma within cutaneous melanoma, of which acral litiginous is one. Yeah, you've got the different UV induced ones. No.
But I appreciate that. But if you've come in,
all melanoma is cutaneous melanoma.
Okay, no, thank you. If you've come in and said, look, if you've come in and said this morning, look, there are studies that suggest that black people are less likely to face melanoma, and therefore it suggests, because there's not a correlation, you know this already, therefore it would correlate with the idea that there's less of a necessity for black people for the purpose of preventing that to use that versus their white counterparts. Then fine, that's an argument you can have. You've qualified it straight down the box, and you say, okay, you can't. It's hard to. You can dispute the point really because you can unpack the argument and everything else. But then that is a harder point to disqualify, because again, to the point of there are various reasons. Management, you can call it protection from the sun. You can call it prevention, blocking from the various things. You can. So there's these other factors as well. There's the element of the aesthetics as well, as we discussed earlier on.
Yeah,
which,
I agree with all.
So
yeah, people want to do that. It's up to them, but let them know why they're doing it. And I think 100%. One of the things that I'm very cognizant of, once again, is that people have no problem encouraging black people. So even though we sit here and we have this discussion, people have no problem encouraging black people to wear SPF. But when I come around and I'm like, actually, I've got proof that it's harmful. Oh my God! Oh, can you prove it? It's like, wait a second. So you've no problem encouraging it, even though there's reports saying that it's harmful. In terms of
but what he just said, how can you not understand that though? Because when you say it, you come, because like he said, like if you had phrased it that way, blah blah blah, there isn't. I don't think we would have talked about it as long as we have. But also, the conversation we would have had would have been different. But the way you phrase it, you basically phrase it like clickbait. It's like it's
no, because you can't like that. You can't be.
The same way you're saying that the media propaganda and whoever else's propaganda is to fear people into wearing SPF. You're basically fearing people, like you're using the same type of language.
It's a counter.
So surely you can understand why it is that when you then present this argument to people in the way that you do, in the very like guns blazing way that you do, surely you must be able to understand why it is that people would have their backup. And again, if you feel like what you're doing a public service and you're doing something where you want to educate your people and stuff, then the way you approach it matters a lot. Then, if you want people to actually listen to the things that you've read, to the studies you read, the research you've done, all that stuff, then it's about the language that you use, and it's about how you have the conversation with them. But when you have the conversation with them, of course they're going to have their backup, because you're basically saying, I want you to question what you've always been taught. Yeah. Right? And that's an uncomfortable thing for anybody to do, regardless of whatever the topic area or subject area is, right? And so if you approach it with that, the way you have approached it today, of course we're going to have their backup. Like, I don't think that should be shocking. Benita says, you haven't proved it's harmful though. You've proved it's not necessary.
Okay, so can I read a quote to respond to that?
Of course you can. thank you. So this is from Association of UV Index Latitude and Melanoma Incidence in Non-White Populations, US Surveillance Epidemiology. Okay, this is once again also published in JAMA, which is a a medical journal. Okay, so this is a peer-reviewed study again, and I'm going to read this quote. So, results. A higher mean UV index was significantly associated with an increase in melanoma incidence only in non-Hispanic whites. So, higher mean UV index significantly associated with an increase in melanoma in whites. Mm-hmm. Yeah? Cool. Mm. Although a non-significant association was noted in Native Americans. Okay, so non-significant. So there's another association.
What is in like? What we're talking like 2%, 5% significance? Is it that kind of significance?
It says no. So it's non-significant. So they said I think it's like 0.4 to wherever that means.
So if it's non-significant, then it.
That's not that relevant.
And that's not qualifying then, because it's non-significant. It's just saying okay in the test.
I'm gonna finish. So non-significant association was noted in Native Americans. So in terms of Native Americans, they also have an association with UV, but it's non-significant, i.e., it's probably just a tiny bit. Yeah. Agreed. Yeah. Negative, but not significant correlations with incident were observed in blacks, Hispanics, and Asians.
Negative, but non-significant.
Negative, but not significant.
Yeah.
So the implication being given there is that as UV increases,
you need a higher data set to make it significant.
You can, or maybe it will just remain non-significant. I think is to do with the size of the gradient, essentially.
Significance and non-significance is to do when you actually can. When something correlates and it's significant, like if you do a 2%, 5% significance, it basically suggests that every time they're testing it, there hasn't been that much room for error. So if something is non-significant, it means there have been some points of error, which says, okay, maybe this suggests this. However, we need to do more to get this. So it's kind of to do with like the false positives and false negatives. That's what non-significance implies, doesn't it? So actually, you could suggest that there's with that in itself. I haven't read the data, but you could actually suggest that there's a false negative by saying, okay, there's a negative correlation, but my data set could be so messed up, or the testing could be so messed up that actually it might not be negative. Hence why they're specifically saying it's non-significant, because in these tests you look for. Significance is what you're looking for, right? So again, when you think about, and the significance comes from. I don't want to get into it, but there's a standard deviation, and you're looking at the tail end of the standard deviations, basically, which is where things happen, but often shouldn't happen in the extreme cases, right? And if they're consistently in the extremes, then you can almost, at least from like a econometric standpoint, say this is almost a definite correlation. Mm-hmm. If it's non-significant and you're testing for, say, a 5% significance, so you're testing, what I mean by that is, if you're testing for a significance of 5%, right, that basically means that basically 95% of the time things are happening, and only 5% is sort of, okay. That's what it's talking about. It's the significance of the kind of 5%, basically. So if it's non-significant, it's outside of that, and therefore you need a bigger data set and you need to explore it even more. So that's basically saying, okay, there's a negative correlation, so therefore there is a likelihood, because not proving, because they said it's not significant deliberately, there's a likelihood that there's a negative correlation in terms of melanoma and melanin. However, it's non-significant. So actually the points might be patchy, which suggests that actually in some instances there's a negative correlation, There might be instances where there's no correlation whatsoever, hence why you've got the non-significance there. And there might even, because they've already said it's negative anyway, we can assume that we won't go the other way around. So actually it tells you it could be the case. Because the point about the significance is the much more pertinent point of the study.
Yeah, and that's all very fair. I am not going to debate any of that. So, but the point being that there's data out there suggesting, but not concluding, obviously, that there's a negative correlation. Now, if you add this to the fact that acral melanoma, okay, sometimes called acral lenticulus melanoma, is a rare subtype of melanoma that forms on the palms, soles of the feet, under the fingernails or toenails, and unlike skin melanoma, well, unlike the UV-induced one, it is not believed to be caused by sun exposure and therefore occurs in the areas not typically exposed to the sun. So you can kind of couple these two together and say, if, and once again, that's fine if you're not, but if you're wearing your sun protection formulas as a way to protect you from harm of the sun, and so far I haven't been convinced. Same with people saying that, well, you haven't proved that SPF harms black people. So far, no one's convinced me that the sun harms black people, and I'm waiting to be convinced. I've just heard people kind of say they prefer to be because it helps with aesthetic issues, but I haven't had any kind of anything to support the fact that the sun, just like standard exposure to the sun, UK exposure to the sun harms black people. If you stay in the sun
without management, you're going to get sunstroke.
UK exposure to standard exposure to the sun.
Did you say that?
Yeah, I did. But I'm qualifying that by saying standard exposure to the sun. I.e., people in the UK being warned to put SPF on their skin before you go out and do your commute. That sounds ridiculous to me, and that's how I'm supporting it.
No, it does sound. Look, honestly, like
being warned. I'm not saying if you're gonna do it. If you're gonna do it, I'm happy with it. But I'm saying when we as the black community, in spite of the data, are warning our community, put this on before you go out. It's a sunny day. That is not being informed by data. That's a choice that we're making.
The thing is that with SPF, so I've said on the show many times, SPF is not just to be worn in summer. It's not just to be worn in the sun. I wear SPF throughout winter as well, because again, it's like the UV rays, it's the lights on our screens, there's all these things this is why I said that there's many reasons why SPF is good. I don't have all the reasons. However, I mean, skin cancer is definitely not my motivation for wearing it. Yeah, but again, it's not just something that you wear just in the summer. And I don't know if the average person wears it like that, but I increase during the summer. I wear it more during the day, but then in winter, for example, I might do like 2 or maybe 3 times a day. But then in summer, probably like 4, 5, maybe, right? Like reapplying them, yeah. So
do you wear natural or which one do you wear? Just
I always get confused with it, but I wear the better one, the better version. I think there's one of them. I don't know if it's a chemical mineral, but one of them always leaves a white cast. The ones I wear don't leave a white cast, basically, or like it might have like a very little hue, but nothing that's like I'm gonna be looking like what's that guy's name? When he tried to play Michael Jackson.
So it's artificial SPF. They're the ones that contain the plastics. Is it one of those?
No, the one. So I use a skin app that lets me know when any skincare products I use has harmful ingredients, is just harmful in general. Cool. So I don't believe that the one I use, it is Korean skincare actually, the one I use as well. So it's fine. So so SPF is not just a summer thing. So to you saying that you're yet to be convinced it's worth, I can't remember how you phrase it. Yeah, just in the UK. Of course in the UK we barely have sun, but then also though, the pollution and all that kind of stuff as well, SPF protects you from that. I don't think anyone was saying that SPF the sun is harmful. The sun cannot be harmful, because if it was harmful, we wouldn't have it. The sun is not harmful, basically. However, the overexposure, the sun is powerful, absolutely. But overexposure to the sun, as overexposure to anything, can be harmful. Yeah, and
you can drown in
society
a
as well.
Drown in a bath.
Drown in a bath, exactly. And with society as well, there's with climate change, with all the things that's going on, the air that we breathe in, the air that's constantly slapping our skins and stuff, it's not great. So that's one of the reasons why I wear SPF. Anyways, love to meet you guys.
Likewise.
We'll be back.
Pleasure.
And yeah, see you soon.
Thank
See you later.
All right, final thoughts.
Conclusions.
Sorry, King's Monologue. Why am I forgetting your name? Andrew. Final thoughts, and then Tom. Final thoughts, and then Emmanuel. Thoughts. You ain't said nothing at all. But share your thoughts, and then we could push on. Thank you.
Yeah. Sorry for angering everyone again. This is the way I talk. Yeah. I guess my final thoughts are I try not to be. I guess in an answer to one of the things that Esther said earlier is that yes, I've come in and I've said things in a very kind of like
Sweeping.
maybe not chose the most
Sweeping way.
Yeah, not even about it being sweeping. It's more about maybe not choosing the most, considered language. But I think the messaging, and I think people are in denial about this as well. I'm going to be totally honest with you. The messaging around this subject and other subject when it comes to black people is always so, black people are more at risk of dying from this. Black people are this, black people are that. And then when I come in and go, actually, well, black people don't need this. I think a part of people having their backup is nothing to do with the way that I've presented the message. It's the fact that they don't like the message and it's something that they believe in. So I'm not going to sit here and then...
No, I disagree with that.
That's me personally. I think people believe have their beliefs.
If you... I think like, you've come in this morning and you've made some very good points. No, you do what you always do, but also it's like we've just unraveled some econometrics this morning, which was quite fun, and spoken about significance and non-significance, which tells people everyone should do their research and learn how data works, and that helps. But like, if you come in and you sweep that way to say, okay, everyone's getting sweeping data, it's like I use sunscreen in the winter as well. I do. Like when I'm outside, again, I go outside lots of trails. You need it regardless of what the sun is. So that point about I'm doing it because, again, I don't think either of us, we weren't thinking about it from the perspective of preventing cancer.
But a lot of black people are.
No, and that's a fair point. But that's something that, to be honest, because I'm oblivious to it, I'm sort of like, you're coming in saying, well, what? It's like, and if there's something that's being thrown in people's faces, then yeah, it's something people should definitely question, for sure. You should question a lot of these things. If you're getting something thrown in your face, and you're saying, hang on, why am I getting this thrown in my face? Of course you should go and question it. But I've never thought about, I'm trying to prevent melanoma, hence why I'm going to just do it to prevent some sun rays. And yeah, should I use some like original natural products? Yeah, I probably should. And will I try to do this going forwards? I'll try a little bit and see if it works for me. And if it does, hey, I'm going to continue with it. Do you know what I mean? Because I'm here to learn something and I've learned something new, right? So,
yeah,
definitely. So, yeah,
just wanted to share that. So just to be clear as well. So this is once again about the messaging, because I think sometimes when these things are raised, I don't know, it's like people get all oblivious. Like, black people, no one believes
Bear
that.
man, I don't watch TV, bro.
Yeah,
so,
do
you know what I mean? I don't.
You gained a lot of respect from me from that, by the way. As soon as you said that, I was like, okay, this is a guy about business, so I like him. I said it to Brent. But look, if you look here, I just typed in black people skin cancer in YouTube. Yeah?
Boy.
No, but I'm saying,
I hear you.
Remember, this is where people go get their information from.
I hear
And
you.
look at the top results. Yeah?
I hear you.
So, black men more at risk from death from melanoma. Raising awareness about skin cancer in the black community, and this one also mirrors that message about black people being more at risk. Black men at higher risk at dying from skin. This is a campaign of false information. So when I come in with an agenda to correct, it's not individuals.
I
correct.
understand.
It's saying there's a campaign of misinformation
And you're
going
countering
around
it.
that everyone has got in their hands.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's wrong. It's factually wrong. And you can look at the data
I understand that.
supports the fact that this is incorrect.
I understand that.
I can't, it's like, I'm not going to pretend that this isn't there.
No,
and
for sure.
I've kind of, this is there. This is the reality.
This is the thing,
that
you're
we're-
right. You can't have your head under the sand, right? And if someone's like, if this is information which is being spewed in, but this again is why I don't bloody watch television. I don't bloody do it, because it's sort of like you think of, to me, let me tell you something, right? Because if you're talking about the point of messaging, I understand it completely, right? Because at the end of the day, you sit down, right, and you do something which is very passive, but it's also very active in the subconscious as well, right? So you're sitting there and you're just watching TV and you're watching whatever people want to tell you, while all of these organizations are getting paid by someone, or we pay them, and if you pay your bloody TV license, right, to put something in your eyes, and I don't want to say deceive, but sometimes it feels like deception that the media create. Yeah. And it's like, if that is the messaging they're throwing out, which again, I'll be oblivious to, but I've seen it and that's there, then it's like, yeah, it's a little bit of bollocks. Really, let's be honest. You know what I mean? If this is something here.
Well, it's incredibly harmful.
No,
and I do
it's
feel
vitriolic.
it's parroted. In fact, what actually prompted me to want to come on the show today, because I wasn't scheduled to come in for a while. I was listening, and I love this show. So I was listening on the show, and it come to the end of the show. I was like, oh, you know, it's a sunny day. Black people, we got to put our. Don't think that you're immune from the sun. Don't think it's like, come on, you can't put that messaging out, and then when someone comes with data to check that messaging, it's kind of like, I'm gonna get offended. Like,
No.
When that messaging goes out, to me, I'm hearing that's harmful. That's harmful messaging when we're turning around and saying we're not immune from the sun. We can do this. We can get, like, that's harmful messaging to me personally. I thought that's false messaging. That's not messaging backed by data. So it's important that we, particularly, I really don't care. I think like kind of mirroring what you said. I actually care very little what the white media says. Because I don't watch it, first of all. So I don't get a lot of it. So I don't confront a lot of it. However, I do care what we say. I do care about the message that we perpetuate to each other.
Yes.
And this is one of the messages that we have to perpetuate. If you want to tell black people, well, guys, the sun's got to be out. If you want to keep that skin looking clear, put on your SPF. That's different. But if you're going to purport the message, put this on, don't get caught in the sun without it, as though we don't have melanin, then I'm going to have an issue with that. I'm going to say, no, that's not correct messaging.
I hear you. No, because and again, your argument is it's a semantic argument, right?
Absolutely.
Which I respect completely, because semantics is really important, right? You can't, that's what media is all about, right? Semantics and positioning and everything else, and you even saw that like I'll give you an example, right? Even. The president of the United States is having an issue with the deep state, right? As in the guys who really run things and whatever, yeah. He's come out and said this bombing in Iran, right? That was just an excuse to use the B-2 bomber, right? Made by Boeing and Northrop. Just an excuse. He's gone down. He's used these massive GSUs, these massive weapons. He's come out and said it's successful. Before that, he's come and said, we got a problem. Now, when the president says that the military's on the back, they got to do something. Now, he's come and said it's been a successful mission. Pentagon have leaked. In various sources, they have leaked. Even this. This is why you have to read multiples of these to get a feel of things, because thesis and antithesis make synthesis. It's a rule of history, historiography. He's come and said, oh, it worked. Deep State have come and said, nah, it didn't work. He's got, and this guy's supposed to have media in his back pocket. So I was like, cool. So you're right, we're all being lied to if we kind of strip it down, or lying is a strong word, but we're all being led in a particular way to believe a certain thing, to go and subscribe into a certain thing for very particular reasons, including sometimes we need to put on SPF, manufactured SPF. We need to put that on because it's going to prevent us from skin cancer. Now, that probably is vehemently wrong. It's vehemently wrong. But if you want to go and have a bit more of a balance and a bit more of a nuance, everybody's favorite N-word is nuance, at least it used to be years ago, to say, okay, you want to do it for management through your day, or you want to do it for aesthetic reasons, go ahead, knock yourself out. But be aware of what you're putting onto your skin, because like most other things, you know, as soon as I have my cup of tea, which I will, I'm going to ingest a bunch of microplastics, right? So I get the point about the semantics, right? But sometimes I often feel like it's like two wrongs don't make a right. Meeting one extreme set of semantics by completely countering it with the other sometimes isn't going to go and help. And this is why, and also if you're talking to someone who has never thought about it, and I've never thought about SPF from the perspective of skin cancer as well. And also, you know, maybe I should be, because I am of a slightly lighter complexion as well, you know, and I should...
You're good, bro.
You know, kind of these, someone talks about these kind of middle-aged white problems and all of these things, you know, that I might have to think about at some point, right? But I've never thought about it. So when you come in and say, this is what it's about, I'm like, hang on, I've never thought about it.
Yeah.
So it makes it easier to deconstruct that out, because I've never been in that position where I've had to think that way. But I hear your point
But
because I think, you know.
I think also sometimes when we have or we go into these discussions, once again, and I find this in the field that I'm in, and this is why I don't bother doing it anymore. People always claim they'll be more receptive to the message if you're more apologetic about it. Oh yeah, no. Mugabe shouldn't have done that. He should have done this. You know, it's like it doesn't work. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? So I'm not gonna, like I said, going back to my original point, I'm not going to diminish. In fact, I would go as far as to saying I have completely understated the power of melanin in this podcast today. I've understated it completely.
You probably have.
I haven't even touched on the advantages that melanin and melanated people have over other populations.
No, you
haven't even touched on it.
That's true.
Yeah? And yet I'm still being, this is extreme, this is because we are so...
No. First of all, hold on.
Wait,
Hold on. Ad hominem. Ad hominem.
That's not you.
No. Ad hominem. Nothing personal.
That's not you.
No. I'm just saying. This is the other thing as well, right? Again, what I'd say to other people is learn how to construct and deconstruct arguments as well. Learn.
Let me finish my point. So, once again.
Because if you're coming, this is what we mean by, because no one's come in and said you're extreme. We've just come in and said the argument you've come at is extreme. I'm not gonna equate you with your argument, because in life you have to learn to separate the man from the message.
I think
question
that
of morality.
That's true. That's true. But I think the point is saying someone's argument is extreme is the same as saying someone's extreme.
No, it's not.
We're talking about semantics.
No, because
I think it is.
So you're telling me you can't separate the man from the message?
No, I can, but
so therefore there should be in a way to say that you're extreme versus your message is extreme. And the reason why I'm saying...
But I think I've already proven that the message wasn't extreme by the qualifying statement, which was, I have completely understated the power of melanin. I haven't even gone into that. So the message wasn't extreme at all. The message wasn't extreme
but from
at all.
the perspective, and we're having a semantic.
The message in many ways.
Black people shouldn't use SPF.
Yeah, no, as well. Black people don't
message.
Need SPF. Need was the key
necessity.
Yeah, was the key word. So need was a key word here, and I'm standing by that. I'm not gonna understate it or bring it back, because I think people kept trying to go, well, what did they use before this, that, and the other? I'm like, the evidence suggests we don't need SPF, i.e., and I showed that image of what SPF does from the UV perspective to show that you already have what is the natural SPF. So you don't need it. You're essentially just multiplying.
Qualify that you don't need it for the purposes relating to
I just don't think you need it. Look, this is my perspective.
That's because you started off that way, and you've done that. So this is the thing.
No,
because
so this
if we're going to go back,
I'm not.
So you're saying blanket statement, but then again,
you don't need SPF. I'm not changing that.
Then there's nothing wrong
said
with that.
Our melanin is enough to protect us.
Okay, I used the word protection.
There you go. So again,
that's fine. That's fine. I accept that. I used the word protection there. I guess I'm just trying to make the, this is more for cognition. We're all using the same language. But the point is, the melanin is doing the role, and I guess limiting the role of melanin to protection is a part of the problem that we're having with this discussion. Because we're saying that melanin only protects. Whereas, I could bring up a list of benefits here.
No, we're talking about SPF too, right? So this is the thing. We're not having a full-blown discussion about the qualities and power of melanin. This is not what we've done this morning.
It's a part of it.
Which is true. It's a part of it. But this morning we have discussed relating to, and including in the studies relating to melanoma.
Yeah.
So you're saying, pertaining to melanoma, there isn't a necessity to apply SPF if you have melanin in your skin.
Essentially.
I don't particularly see anything that's wrong with that in light of what we discussed this morning.
Yeah. And I'm not gonna bring that messaging back. That's the messaging that I'm quite clear with.
The thing is, it's just because it came in unqualified, unbounded. Even if you think from like negative infinity to positive, it came in unbounded, saying just this. You're like, wait, hang on. Then you start asking, because if you come in and you say things that are unbounded, that gives room for people to come and say, well, about this and this and this and this and this. Whereas if you bind your argument and say, well, pertaining to this is this and this. If you came in this morning and said, okay, there's this message. If you came this morning and said, there's this message going around saying that black people need to put on, it's mandatory for them to put on SPF to prevent them from getting melanoma, the same way that the messaging is passed to everybody else, including white people, to prevent them, then I'd be like, okay. And then you come in and say, but hang on, there's a difference in the way that the UVA and UVB reacts with the two types of melanin that you mentioned earlier on, that white people have more of one, black people have more of the other, and therefore there's a difference in the. And if you'd gone and done that and said, okay, well, therefore it leads to suggest that this is the. I don't think there'd be any problem.
But
with that.
I think we have to get there. I think we have to get there. The bottom line
True.
is that we have to go through that process. You know, it's like Hegelian dialectic. We have to go through that process of synthesis, antithesis, and then we have to go through that entire process. So we had to have this discussion.
I love it when people try to do Hegelian arguments.
Well,
I'm more of a camp man myself.
I also have to.
Sorry, what does that mean? You're not
Hegelian.
speaking in Cambridge language. I
No,
don't know
Hegelian.
what did you just do? And you
Hegelian dialectic is just basically how you formulate new arguments and new approaches to any kind of science.
Okay.
So you have a thesis, and then rather than going through the process of basically looking at the thesis in depth and then kind of like picking apart, the Hegelian kind of like approach would just be to formulate an antithesis.
Yeah.
Yes, i.e. an argument against it.
Thesis plus antithesis equals synthesis.
And it's from that collision
You actually
you then formulate a synthesis.
Okay.
So I tend to take the Hegelian approach where it's kind of like, okay, boom, let me find out boom, this is it, all right? And then we can have a discussion. And
corner solution,
hopefully
corner
you've
solution.
seen, and hopefully you've seen in the discussion, it wasn't a case of people just being emotional. It's kind of like, okay, well, here's a point against your argument. Do you have anything? Well, here's some supporting evidence. Let's have a look at that. Let's look at supporting evidence.
Qualify the numbers
Exactly,
as well.
exactly. So you qualify it as much as you can as possible. And the reason I probably take that quite strong stance is because I know we're going to settle somewhere in the middle. If I came here and I was kind of like here, I don't want people to settle too close to where they started in this discussion.
Isn't that like a big part of like kind of the way things are conducted in that kind of anthropological space? Like where someone puts out something, then you put something else out, which kind of creates a rebuttal, then you move on forwards with that.
Yeah.
Whereas when I tend to look at things, I try to find, how should I explain, what's the most efficient understanding the constraints? Because I accept in life that there are constraints in almost everything that we do.
Yep.
So you acknowledge the constraints, and then you kind of work and say, well, what's the most efficient path in light of the constraints? And where does that get me to? Because if you do something unbounded, you come up with all kinds of things. It's like you divide something by 10, then 100, then 1,000, then 10,000, and you divide to 0. Weird things happen the closer you divide to 0. Things get bigger, right? So and as you do that kind of unbounded thing, so you have to bind it, right? Kind of, and this is why you have the square root of -1 is I, right? Square root of -1 is I is an imaginary number, right? But actually it helps you understand concepts, including how probably UVA and UVB waves move, right? So, yeah. But I take the point. I take the point that actually you're going to start off with a thesis. Here's the exact antithesis of saying this, and in the middle you're going to find not necessarily in the middle, somewhere within that unbounded space, right? Because I don't think anything that the points that you've made with regards to the messaging, with regards to the studies and the lack of studies, with regards to even why is, the Public Health England thing, why does it have to come out in August 2020? There's nothing wrong that's being said. So, and it makes a lot of sense. And actually going on my walks, I'm gonna try and see, actually. I'm gonna be, because normally I've got the sunscreen and I've got the after sun in my bag. I'm going to try and see. And you know what?
Don't pass up, brother.
I will. I'm going to let you know. I'm going to be honest. I'll be honest.
I'll tell you what. My sister-in-law used to always complain about burning in the sun. Yeah, and she's a little bit lighter than me.
Yeah,
probably about Esther's complexion. So she's a dark-skinned girl. And she used to go, and this is before I'd done any of the studies, by the way. I've always kind of been like, it's bollocks. I know. I've always been like that. But I used to say to my wife, just tell her to stop putting bloody all those products on her skin, because that's probably what's react. Because she used to put, if I don't wear it, I'm going to be thinking. And what happened is basically her skin was suffering from the fact that, so even when she didn't apply SPF, because her skin was used to it, she had to go through this period of basically her top layer of skin shedding before she can now go outside. She doesn't wear any SPF anymore. But she had to go through that process because her top layer of skin had been so compromised by her product reliance that she did burn. And I'm like, well, we're the same. Well, I'm darker than you. We're the same complexion. We go out, and I never burn. And I'm not saying it's a thingy, but like I'll be out in the sun the same time as you. You're coming back and you're peeling and stuff. That's indication of something. So she had to go through this entire process where she essentially had to shed that top layer of skin. But now she's fine. She doesn't use any sun protection products. So there might be a curve.
No, we're off again.
Do you understand what I mean? Like there might be. You never know. There might be a curve.
I think we're off. Brent?
All right.
Oh, okay.
No, but that's fine. Nick is still here.
Okay.
But
okay,
they can't
cool.
speak. But yeah, continue.
Says,
So this is the final thing before I go on to Emmanuel. Please ask him, does he believe melanated people shouldn't wear sunglasses?
that's all for you, bro.
With UV filters. Also, is his partner's makeup SPF free?
All you, bro.
Why of all the questions in there, I'm sure you had a better question than that one.
No, but this,
You're such a
I'm going
troll.
through the collection
You're
I have
such a-
collected.
you're
That's
such
the
Brent,
first
you know,
one.
Big Brent.
That's the first one. I've got a few
such a
more.
troll.
I've got a few more. Look,
I'm
look,
not
start it.
gonna warrant that one with an answer. I don't think it deserves my
All
time.
right, fair. I appreciate both of you all like immensely today. I didn't think I would get so much information from those that particular couch. That couch is normally a Mags is normally sat there and a guest is sat there. Yeah. But anyway,
Don't throw shade.
Shout out Marks, innit? No, hold on.
Too late.
First of all, shout out Mashtown, innit? Big up Mashtown as well. Sports is an excellent mixtape. I still listen to it today. You get me? Big up Marks, all of Mashtown and that. Big up, man.
Go. Let's see
all
some
right,
better
Emmanuel,
questions.
final thoughts.
I don't have much to say, to be honest with you.
Alright.
Because I feel like at the very end, you guys obviously came to some sort of good, for lack of a better term, middle ground.
Synthesis.
There you go. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, I don't really have much to say, man.
All right, cool.
I think it's a really good build.
Thank you. Let's move on to the next headlines. Please read all of them, the rest of them, and then we move on to the People's Journal.
Are you going
And
to fix
then-
the thingy? Or leave it?
For your benefit or for the people calling in?
Okay, I'm alright like this, to be honest. I'm fine. Thank you.
All right, cool.
Just leave it.
Topic I can tell.
And you could have given us your documentary to share with them beforehand. So
Because this was decided a week ago. And man, what happened to you, man?
I told.
Yeah, I would have
no,
liked to have
you know what?
prepared like a
Precisely.
little bit more
Okay, no, I didn't say
preparation.
what the
You
topic
know?
was, but I said we're going to have.
Because I knew it was going to be controversial. I would have preferred that the ground was laid. Because then it just sounded like I had this bug to bear. But we've decided we were going to talk about this discussion a week ago.
Yeah, you should have
Just
given
so, I mean, so that's
So Brent,
why
you just brought me in cold to say I could argue. Like, you just
To be honest,
cold.
I knew that you would have a fantastic conversation. I just didn't know that you had a documentary that we could have shared with the community beforehand. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Because this was no Vaseline.
Can we share it afterwards?
Yeah,
The
100%.
documentary.
I'm definitely gonna watch
And it was no Vaseline. No diddies.
So,
Go ahead, man.
all right, cool. So, next headline, trigger warning, guys. Essay, right? So, 4 women have told a BBC investigation that they were sexually assaulted or raped by the same man in the 1980s and 90s. The alleged attacks took place in Dumfries over an 11-year period when the women were teenagers. One was just 15. Days before the BBC was due to broadcast its documentary, The Rapist in Our Town, police arrested a man over claims by 2 of the women in the programme. The women had first gone to the police 20 years ago, but prosecutors decided not to take the case to court. The BBC disclosure investigation, which began in April, uncovered new alleged victims in the case and features claims that police missed a crucial lead 2 decades ago. The man, who the BBC is not naming for legal reasons, denies the allegations. He says that the claims had been previously robustly investigated and he was never prosecuted. Next headline, trigger warning on this one as well, people. Trigger is murder. And a man has been found guilty of murdering 14-year-old Daniel Anjorin during an attack with a sword in Hainault. Pretty sure you guys remember that one, right?
Very
Horrible.
weird.
Horrible. Marcus Monzo, 37, had gone into a cannabis-induced psychosis when he killed a teenager with a samurai sword in April last year. This is what the Old Bailey heard. Monzo was also convicted of 3 counts of attempted murder, wounding with intent, aggravated burglary, and possessing a bladed article. He was cleared of 1 count of attempted murder in relation to the victim, Henry de los Rios Polina, but found guilty of the lesser offence of wounding with intent to cause grievous bodily harm. Monzo, who showed no emotion as the verdicts were read out, previously admitted having a samurai sword he used to kill Daniel and a katana sword found in his van. Witnesses described Monzo screaming in delight as he fatally wounded Daniel, who was wearing his PE kit.
I think the sentencing is today as well.
And can I just note,
Yes.
and this is just another thing I have around messaging, notice how they called it a cannabis-induced psychosis.
Yeah.
That, to me, the language is quite clearly giving him alibi and excuse.
Yeah,
Exactly.
100%.
It's not, if that was a young black teenager,
He'd been slaughtered.
even if he had been on coke, they wouldn't have cared or called it a coke-induced, cannabis-induced psychosis. This is just the kind of language that we're used to when it comes to people of that demographic committing these kind of acts. It's always lone wolf, never linked to any R word or T groups, and always acting under the influence of something because, God forbid, that he's just done something evil, like all those evil teens out there. But anyway, sorry.
Although I was reading about it this morning, actually, one paper describes it, says it a conspiracy theorist who murdered a much-loved schoolboy, much-loved, unquote, schoolboy, and tried to kill 4 adults in a cannabis-induced sword rampage, faces life in prison. However, the reason why I think also, to the point about the messaging is important, I also think one of the reason why they're focusing on that as well is they're also assessing, and we'll see what they come up with. The verdict's been announced, but the sentencing is coming today. It's deciding whether cannabis allows any of the sentences to be reduced. Now, I strongly suspect that there won't be much of a reduction. It might sort of be like life and maybe you get 50 years or something. I will be shocked if it's anything less than that, to be honest. Even 50 years probably feels a bit too light, to be honest, in my humble opinion. But I think that's why the reference is to the cannabis induction, because they're trying to assess that. But I think you're right that if it was anybody else, they'd be sent to the rafters, right? Because they'd be described in a different way. But I also think the nature of
mental health is only an excuse for one day.
No, I don't even. I wasn't even going to think about the mental health. I was just going to say, like, I think the nature of the attack, and rest in peace, Daniel. Because I just think there was something very weird about that killing or the set of killings. It was very, very weird, and I think a lot of people, it was the fact that it almost felt like that guy.
Did it say
It looked like
what kind of conspiracy theories he's into? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there were alt-right conspiracy theories.
I have a look.
But
There's
notice
another
how
section on it, by the way. But
I would not be surprised if they're alt-right conspiracy theories. And this is the thing. They just never... It's like you can only be a T word if you're brown. Do you understand what I mean? The longest existing T group in the world is in America, and it has the same 3 letters, and it's still legal. Yeah, the same letters repeated 3 times. You know what I'm talking about? Yeah, the K, blah blah blah. Yeah, that's a T group. All right, they have more bodies on their list than any other T group globally, and they still operate as a legal entity. So they have domestic Ts, and they're absolutely fine with them. The UK has many alt-right T groups, many, but the only T groups they take seriously are the brown ones linked with Islam. The ones that this guy's become disparate conspiracy theories not connected with anything.
So, in fact, there is a reference to it's actually. I mean, I want to say it's interesting, but I mean it in a particular way because it. So, he claimed that DNA was altered by the COVID-19 vaccine. He supported David Icke, who promoted fringe conspiracy theories.
Did you say he spoke to?
No,
He supported.
He
supported.
yeah.
Okay.
And he had a belief that the world was flat, quote unquote, and that people were controlled by, quote, evil wizard type aliens. So I think this is why I think in light of these things, they're questioning sanity, they're questioning the use of drugs, and whether that diminished any of kind of the responsibility for his crimes, which, you know, might be a bit of a cop-out. But if you're going around saying the world is flat...
Well, I mean, none of
He
those...
believes in the lizard people.
None of those beliefs that he had would normally cause people to go out and commit
do I
those
believe
kind of
it?
acts.
What do you believe in lizard people?
No, he believes in lizard people.
Yes, he believed in lizard people. Yes, yes.
Imam believes in lizard people too.
What?
Yeah, our favorite professor is David Icke. Professor David Icke.
David Icke.
You know, I think people might start believing all this stuff that you put on me, you know. Professor David Icke.
See, oh Lord! See, the thing is, none of the beliefs, and we can say, oh, you know, to me, none of the beliefs that he has there are that extreme. That would definitely lead you to harm somebody, let alone do what he's done.
I don't think David
look at
Icke's gone
someone
around
who
and murdered
goes,
someone now, has he, though?
yeah, exactly. You know, so. I don't know. I just feel like there's more to it because he's just gone out there and he's murdered a young
No, I definitely
black
think there was
teen. There's something more to it. I'm sorry.
100%, because it almost looked like, because they showed the foot. I remember when it happened. One, they named him very quickly, which is often weird. They tend not to name people when they do things for legal reasons, but I think they had to name him very quickly because it was so apparent what he'd done was just clear murder.
Had to hunt for his picture though. They
Oh,
managed
yes.
to keep that off all the front pages. They just show the victim, and
'cause
then
it was
everyone
like the-
assumes that he's something else.
It was like it was almost like he looked like some kind of grim reaper that was looking to take someone to the underworld. If you no, and I don't say that. It just it was so weird. So I think I remember saying to someone, I said there's probably something that there's more than meets the eye with these sets of killings that he engaged in, because it was just so weird, you know. And again, like, poor Daniel, but, you know, thoughts to his family, because it's tragic. And the crazy thing about it is, unless you're from like that part of London, nobody in the world knew where Hainault was before then, you know. It was insane. So, you know, we'll see what happens with the sentencing today. So
Yes, sad, man. All right, guys. So our next headline: an exclusive report from ITV News has revealed that children as young as 12 are being addicted to ketamine, opting to buy the horse tranquilizer over a packet of crisps. So local leaders in Cheshire are battling to keep ketamine at bay across the county, with health officials warning of the life-changing consequences of a prolonged use of the drug that 13-year-olds are understood to be dealing. The drug is so cheap and accessible, school-aged kids are opting to buy it instead of crisps or a fizzy drink. This is what they said, right?
What?
Yeah, well, this is what they're saying.
Wait.
Right, local leaders in Cheshire.
Oh, it's just so weird.
I know, it's crazy.
Like,
yeah,
how
I know,
was
I
this
know.
experiment conducted?
Yeah, I guess they would. I guess they would say as well, like not all, innit? But some kids.
As a
are.
child, I probably, not even experiencing ketamine, would have taken, just on a value basis, I'd be like, I could shut that for at least a tenner. Yeah, that pack of crisps costs 69p. So give me that. It doesn't necessarily mean like you gotta give us all of the.
that's crazy. That's insane. Do you know what I mean? That's like that's insane. But also, it's like it just goes to show like the real like kind of systemic problems in this country. Do you know what I mean? It's like it goes to show that there's an underbelly of issues. Do you know what I mean? I think a lot of the time, people that live in London, white, black, whoever, we often forget that we live in a space that's vastly different to the rest of the country. Even from like a, what's the word, like prosperity point of view, that London and the southeast is prosperous. It takes most of the tax receipts from its residents there, but there's lots of depravity in the UK. Do you know what I mean? That forces people to do things that they don't want to necessarily do. Look at all the kids that go into school and need the breakfast and everything else, and all the austerity that has led to this, or at least partly. There's loads of other factors as well, but partly led to this as well. And so it's kind of like you kind of have to almost sympathise with some of these children and the positions that they're in because they don't, I'd like, God forbid, you want your kids to be doing that? No, and you'd prevent that as much as possible. You know what I mean? Prevent that as much as possible. But it's just a tragic kind of thing that we often don't pay attention to. And even though it sounds crazy, like picking a crisp packet and that's a fizzy drink. You should be doing that instead of like. But some people feel like they're in a position where they can't do anything else. Do you know what I mean? Which is tragic, but so
It's crazy, man.
crazy though. That's man.
It's still a great study. I'd want to read the study. I'm sorry, because I'm still trying to picture how that.
But ITV News, they even accompanied Cheshire Police when they
Really?
went to carry out a few raids on 4 addresses. They arrested 4 people, 3 of them were teens,
Really?
suspected of supplying ketamine to young people across the area.
Wow.
So man, so they're saying the northwest of England appears to be a test case for how the use of the drug continues to increase with younger teenage users across the rest of the UK.
Isn't like the northwest of England as well? It's like for drug trafficking, right? Drug usage. It's rife out there, right? When you look at a map of the UK and like you can think about the travelling and all of that, it's rife over there. So that's crazy though. That is crazy. Just kids. Do you know what I mean? They're just kids, man.
Yeah. Our next headline, Edgar Lungu's family expressed their disapproval after a South African court halted the former Zambian president's private burial on Wednesday. So the court order was issued following a request made by the Zambian government. The latest turned in a protracted battle over the details of Lungu's funeral and final resting place. So Edgar Lungu, he served as Zambia's head of state from 2015 to 2021, and he died on the 5th of June in South Africa at the age of 68. His family rejected plans for a state funeral to be held in Zambia due to his long-lasting feud with the country's current leader, Hichilema. They instead opted for a private burial in South Africa. Makebi Zulu, who's the spokesperson for Edgar Lungu's family, said, "It's an opportunity for us to tell a great story of President Edgar Chagwa Lungu, how that he lived as a president, served the nation as a president, and therefore he was a person that was betrayed by the system, cast aside by the system. Now in his death, they wish to come back and pretend as though they took care of him, pretend as though they were good to him." Next headline takes us to Nigeria, man. Trigger one on this one, people. Some killings, right? At least 17 Nigerian soldiers were killed in a series of coordinated attacks by armed gunmen on 3 army bases in northern Nigeria. This is what security sources and local officials confirmed yesterday. So the attacks, which took place on Tuesday, targeted forward operating bases in Kwana, Dutsi, Mariga, and Boka in Niger State, as well as another base in neighboring Kaduna State. According to security officials, the gunmen engaged troops in prolonged firefights that lasted several hours. Right, these were surprise attacks, and the soldiers fought back fiercely. This is what one of the security sources said. Then went on to say, unfortunately, we lost 17 men in the battle. The assailants, commonly referred to as bandits in the region, are part of a heavily armed criminal group known for terrorizing northwestern Nigeria.
Bandits are real. One of my friends, actually, I could actually call him my friend. I was gonna say my friend's cousin, but me and him met for and were very we chatted quite a lot. Got kidnapped by bandits, man.
Wow.
Yeah. That's real out there.
Wow.
He got kidnapped. He was, I think, 4 days with them. He was lucky to be released because they end up killing most of the people they kidnapped. But
did they give like a?
Yeah, they had to give a ransom.
Yeah.
They gave a ransom, and then they just released him, and he had to walk through the bush.
Find
And
his way back.
they'll like to him, don't walk in that direction because there's another group there, and they'll take you again, and that's nothing to do with us.
Wow.
So walk in that direction. Wow. And he managed to. He was lucky. He's one of the lucky ones. He managed to get out. So bandits are very real.
Bandit country, innit?
Yeah, it's horrible. It's horrible.
Yeah, man. Even just to add into what you're saying, they've been blamed for frequent abductions, attacks on villages, and assaults on security installations. Local authorities say that the gunmen arrived in large numbers and were well coordinated, overwhelming military personnel at the remote posts. And the last headline, Liberians applying for US visas will have to give American authorities access to their social media. This according to the US Embassy in Monrovia.
No, it's becoming a new thing now. Like I don't know if you brought this up, but someone flew in from Norway into the States. So I don't think there was any problem getting an Esther or something, but he wasn't let in because he had a meme on his phone about J.D. Vance, the vice president. So it's becoming a thing now, and it's very like, I don't know what the word is, dystopian, Orwellian, or whatever it is, but like
dystopian, man.
it's kind of, do you know what I mean? Like you know, don't go with your phone to the US, like, you know what I mean? Like,
crazy.
just go with an old school Nokia. You might be all right, you know, like, because the fact that they're, you know, like a basically an American colony, if you will, Liberia, like essentially, like it's just,
I was just, literally what I was just thinking.
like just saying,
It's like you owe them
yeah,
repatriation
so,
if they want it, you know.
like we can check everything before we give you residence, but that's you know that's the way the world is becoming. You know what I mean? We're becoming like, you know, the world is becoming less and less globalized. You know, people now leaders have more of a messianic complex than they ever did before. True. Depending on who you are.
I think we're in. It feels like we're in the final throes of dystopia. That's what it feels like to me. I feel like there's a lot of desperation amongst the political class.
Yeah, it does.
If you look at what's even happening with that nation in the Middle East that no one likes.
No, it does.
They've kind of like you know, like the boy who cried wolf. They've kind of like expired the public sentiment and pity and guilt, and now it's got to the point where everyone is just fed up and has had enough. And I feel like that's kind of like.
I was listening to something the other day. No, and I hear you. I was listening to something the other day that, like, if you think about Trump, the Ayatollah in Iran, and Mr. Netanyahu, they all, to some extent, all three of them have some kind of messianic complex. Bibi has been there for such a long time. Was he being impeached for corruption?
Yeah.
But is deciding to be very tyrannical to the point where even people inside that country are not particularly happy with him, saying, stop being tyrannical, turn it over. Yep. He wants to go out with a legacy, clearly. Yep. Trump obviously wants to run everything using executive power and wants to do everything and wants to save American imperialism how he can, including fighting with the deep state. And the Ayatollah is sort of like... I mean, I think he's 86. He's very old, but he sort of goes on like he cannot die and comes on like he's an immortal figure. And so when you have, dare I say it, again, this is just my opinion, you have three megalomaniacs who, at the finger of a button, can destroy mankind. It is very scary when you think about it, right? And it's also the fact that other countries are now being tied in. And even when you think about the situation, even if you think about just Iran on a standalone basis, right? It's the fact that now America may have to be worried about their allies in the other allies in the Middle East. So I'm talking Qatar, kind of the soft friends, Saudi, kind of that, you know, those countries. They'll have to be worried about them as well as their main ally in the Middle East. And it's a very, very difficult situation. It's very, very tentative. Trump was not happy about the ceasefire and, you know, things an hour later, you know, things being dropped and everything else. But like I said, I think this thing, World War III, started 2 years ago on the 7th of October. Because I think what happened was, and it's probably happened before, but I think this is probably what happened was, a very sophisticated piece of defense equipment called the Iron Dome, if you know, you know, got penetrated, which should not happen. Shouldn't happen. The US, they fund a lot of it. It's made, I think Raytheon are the manufacturers. They're the prime contractors there. And at that moment, if you have something as good, because the Iron Dome is a pretty good piece of equipment, if you have something being penetrated by, I don't even know if it was hypersonic missiles, but it got penetrated right through, then all of a sudden, and there was, at the time, there was a supposed 10% of the Revolutionary Guard in Iran who would study munitions in Israel. That was their job, just to study how Iron Dome, David Sling, all of that stuff, just to understand how it worked. If you have that penetrated, then it almost looks like a failure on your part, because this thing should be able to defend anything. And it actually defends pretty well. I think you remember back in 2023, it was about 300 missiles coming through, only 7 of them got through. So it's not a bad run rate. But the fact that one of them did get penetrated probably angered the Knesset, and they said, okay, well, let's do this. And now they're kind of calling on for, now suggesting that Iran should not be doing nuclear, which in a way has effects in Europe, because we have a partner that we are making nuclear in the UK. France, most of its power is run by nuclear. I think about 75% of its power is run by nuclear. Thank you to EDF. And so that kind of puts the world in a really, really tentative position, to be honest, in terms of where we go on from here. But I think we've been in a soft element of warfare for a while. And even when you think about back to Russia-Ukraine, the argument that Trump and other people had been making was saying, look, there's this Nord Stream. So Germany was getting, I think it was gas from Russia for a long time. And Nord Stream being shut off, you're like, oh boy. And then getting through to Ukraine means that wheat prices go up because there's a lot of wheat there, and it's hard for gas and oil to come through. And we're still in that war now. So it's a very, very, very difficult position that the world is in. And you kind of wonder, one, when will the ceasefire actually end prematurely, which it probably will. Two, will we ever engage in nuclear warfare? Which is very scary when you think about it, right? We have not, you spoke about Chernobyl, and, we're hoping that maybe melanin can protect us if we get...
This is the thing. I'm sitting here thinking, maybe it will. Maybe it will. Maybe just need to go and relocate to those high radiation...
Go up to the mountains, away.
Areas.
18,
I'd be like, no, I'm good. My melanin, this makes me stronger. I turn to
18,000.
Superman. Because you're out in the radiation.
So maybe that's where we go next, we go to... And that's a scary thing, because I sort of... Anyone that engages in nuclear warfare knows that they're going for destruction.
Yeah.
This is not like using some air-to-air, surface-to-air kind of missile where you can do it as a deterrent, or you can argue you're doing it as a deterrent, right? You are going for absolute destruction. You are if you hit a certain point, you're going for destruction, And actually, if you... it's very scary. And all of the, and the thing is, all of these countries that have got the nukes, right? All of, how many countries have got nukes? Loads. Now,
It's crazy, man.
So it's tentative times.
Here's what's interesting, Brent. Here's one for you. So, someone made that comment earlier about, does Andrew not wear sunglasses?
Maggie.
Yeah. Actually, interesting fact for you, Maggie. Melanated black eyes have far more fidelity than lighter coloured eyes. So black eyes actually are nature's sunglasses. So if you've got black pupils. If you've got black pupils, you can see in much higher fidelity, particularly in bright areas.
Really?
Yeah, blue eyes have better dark, so they can see more things in the dark more easy, but they're also the worst performing eye colour when it comes to bright. So if you live in a bright circumstance, like it's really bright, then you'll have poor fidelity during the daytime. But at night time, you can see really well. So I've already got nature's sunglasses on, actually. There you go.
How did you walk in here? How did you walk in here?
Say again?
How did you walk in here?
With a lovely pair of sunglasses.
All right.
Nothing wrong with sunglasses in the rave, you get me?
Oh, man.
Nothing wrong.
I love sunglasses. That's like my favourite accessory. I can't even lie.
Let me finish this and then we're going to the next, because I want to obviously deep dive into that quickly. So, like I was saying, Liberians applying for US visas will have to give American authorities access to their social media, right? In a statement posted on its website, the embassy said that people applying for an F, M, or J non-immigrant visa are requested to adjust the privacy settings on all of their social media accounts to public to facilitate vetting necessary to establish their identity and admissibility to the US.
Wow, no burner accounts.
And,
Wow,
US
serious, Hey.
But Liberians are not alone. So the move is part of a new policy tightening screening process across the board, like you were saying, right? The aim is to ensure that those pardon me, the aim is to ensure those applying for admission to the United States do not intend to harm Americans or our national interests. This is what the US State Department said in a press release on the 18th of June, adding that a US visa is a privilege, not a right. Since returning to office in January, Donald Trump has cracked down on foreign nationals who want to enter the US and those already in the country. Tourists and legal permanent residents of the US, including nationals of Canada, Germany, and the United Kingdom, have also been detained trying to enter the country.
So, okay, so I was going to ask, is it just Liberia? But it sounds like it's a...
Everything.
It's kind of blanket, which is
yeah.
interesting because Nigeria's visa policy at the moment is one of reciprocity. So when I went to Nigeria, I got my Nigerian passport renewed now. But when I went to Nigeria a couple of years ago, I was kind of in between. My passport had just expired. And oh my God, I had to spend about £400 and lost about two days in terms of visiting. Yeah, but they made it so hard. But all they did was made the process reciprocal. So I had to spend as much as they have to spend to get over here in terms of the visa. It didn't last for very long. It was like I could either get like a one visit visa or multi-visit visa, and the multi-visit visa costs a lot more. Like it was just a nightmare. But at the same time, I kind of had to empathize with the policy. I was like, okay, I get why you're doing that. I hate the fact that I have to do it, but I get why you're doing it as Nigeria. So I hope they continue that process of reciprocity when it comes to the US on this, because they'll be able to keep out a load of CIA. And they might keep their presidents alive for a bit longer.
Alright, cool. Well, guys, that's the end of the headlines. Brent, let's quickly go into the People's Journal.
All right.
All right, people. Welcome to the People's Journal, where we give you the news from an economics point of view, but it's going to be a bit more than economics today. So we're going to go into the front pages and a few other things that Tom has prepared for us. So please, Tom, what would you like to talk about first?
We've
What
got
do
a
the
few
people?
things, actually.
Yeah, what do the people need to know?
Well, we got a few things. I like doing this. You know, you kind of like the news and that they do it the night before. They kind of do this in the morning after. So I like doing this. But this sort of, you pick enough papers, it sort of tells you what the currents are, and then you kind of read in. But most of which we've spoken about. But let's see if there's anything else. We've spoken about the UK as well with the PIP payments and everything else. We've already done that. But so this morning, what do we have in the Times? We have US officials are going to Iran to talk more about a nuclear program, which is a bit loco when you think about it. Iran just got bombed and now they're going to go back and talk about but it is what it is.
Sorry to cut you.
Yeah.
It's based on what you said earlier about certain leaders having, this Messiah complex and stuff. Yeah. I was going to ask you, do you think Iran's version, so with the Ayatollah, that it's more so the people see him in that respect, or it's a personal thing? Because that may affect how, I guess, the West deal with the Iran issue.
It's a good question. I'll be honest, I don't know enough about the kind of perception there. Like sometimes you read some things and it suggests that some of the, similar to what you have in Israel, that you have some people that are vehemently against the leader, although it's a bit more, I think it's a bit more difficult to be against the Ayatollah than it is to be against Bibi as such. But I think it's probably, you mentioned something about the people, remember that in Iran, it's very, culturally they're Persians, right? 5,000 years of civilization, resistance, kind of overturning the previous regime. I think it was back in the 70s, I think. So they're kind of,
late 70s,
they're used to that kind of trying to overthrow and overturn things. But I think, and maybe that may have been the case previously, but I think there's probably a few bigger things to worry about, like not getting bombed, for example. So I think maybe there's I think it feels like there's a bit of a mixed opinion, I think, in terms of, but also he's, 86, that's old. Even for a politician, that's pretty old, right? So, yeah.
Funny that's. I mean, I think he's a bit older, but funny that's like Trump's sort of age range.
Yeah,
as well,
I mean, U.S. politics is ridiculous in the sense that you have to be 70 years old to run the country. It's ridiculous, but
crazy.
So,
yes,
no, good. That's that. NATO. There are a bunch of. I think it's actually quite interesting. There's a bunch of MPs, about 100 Labour MPs that are against this bill.
Yeah.
Now, Keir Starmer's argument, and not just his argument, Rayner's involved and all the great officers of state are involved in this, but their argument is that people needing disability payments have gone up since COVID from about 500, 600,000 to now about 800,000 people. The cost is trying to save 5 billion, but the cost is, I will finally look at, the cost is, it's like 80 billion a year or something. It's like really expensive to fund this. And he's like, I can't do this anymore. But there are a bunch of like Labour MPs who have, typical kind of left of Labour who are kind of like, don't cut down the NHS, don't take this back. And there's enough critical mass where this bill might not be able to go through because if they put some amendments, which I think is quite interesting because I think that Starmer's now in a pretty difficult position because he's now having to deal with international matters, deal with NATO, deal with the US, deal with Iran, deal with Israel. He's having to deal with all of that while also having to try and pass through some bill that might save him 5 billion or something in a couple of years. So I think he's stuck between a rock and a hard place. I think it's going to be difficult for him, to be honest. And I think he's kind of just, it was funny reading this that, Labour's obviously had problems for a long time with like that whole like anti-Semitism saga and all of that. And that was one thing. Then trying to deal with people very much on the left that they didn't like a Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell and such people. And they were trying to get rid of them, which they eventually did, essentially. And so he was trying to create more of a central church in the party, but that just doesn't seem to be working. And so we'll see if it gets overturned. But the irony is, look, the UK, as I said earlier, they've just announced about 12 F-35, and it's like, how are you going to fund that? We're just going to fund it because the question you have to ask, anything in politics is, right, you're going to do something, how are you going to fund it, right?
Yeah, 100%.
Either you try and balance the books or you borrow more money, and it's a bit more expensive for these guys to borrow money than it was about 5-6 years ago, right? The interest rates have just gone up from 0 to wherever we are now, like 4 or 5%, and actually that is something in itself as well. So that's the bloody hell. They say it was 120 MPs that are prepared to revolt this, right? So that's a lot of Labour MPs who say no, we can't do this anymore. So it just goes to show.
I think they only need like 80, right? So it's far above.
Yeah, you don't need that much to get like an opposition to this, right? So it probably, they want to amend it and see what they can do, but we'll see. In the Independent, again, same thing. This is the thing. I picked the papers up this morning, and I thought we'd get much more international stuff, which you still have, and we'll come back to that as well because there's something interesting in here. But again. But it's just the system's broken. It's like there's no more money. The public purse is gone. Do you remember, there was this, I can't remember who came in as Chancellor 2010. I can't remember, Osborne when he came in, yeah? Then he got a note from, I don't know if it's him or if it's someone from like the Treasury office as a cabinet secretary or whatever, but there was a thing saying, no more money, thank you very much. And there hasn't been money in 14 years. There isn't going to be any more money anyway, which... God, it makes the UK sound really bad. No wonder why we like the UK when it, years ago. Yeah. Like the summer in the UK years ago. But yeah, so that's that. Interesting, there's a guy who was the defense secretary years ago, Leon Panetta, who is pretty well respected. He was Obama's defense secretary, actually, kind of 2009 to 2011. And he's basically just vehemently said that Trump is just wrong and very, it's... For someone in that realm of politics to come out and say that Trump has issues, it just kind of tells you that there's kind of a lot of distrust in America right now. In kind of the big channels, there's a big mistrust. Langley and Washington probably hate each other. Yeah. So which I think is interesting because you don't really get these guys coming out to say much, to be honest. They just do what they want to do. And then the other thing I actually found quite interesting today was, I think it's 1 in 34 babies are now born by IVF in the UK.
1 in 34.
Which is
quite high.
more than before, I think. I'm going to check if it's 1 in
very high.
34. But like, so the idea is that
That's
obviously
like 3%.
you've got to the point where
That's
there's
high.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
But that's to
becoming
do with the age that people are having kids,
That's
isn't
exactly
it?
what I'm thinking. Yeah,
People having kids much later.
yeah.
Yeah, from it was
IVF is very expensive.
yeah, man. It's increased from 1.3% in 2000 to 3.1% in 2023.
I find that shockingly high, to be honest with you. I don't think it'd be anywhere near that. I don't think that many people could afford it.
So it said overall 52,000 patients had more than 75,000 IVF cycles. So you have, wow, in 2023. 11% of births to women were aged 40 to 44. Wow, that's great. So yeah, some of it is to do with the age.
Makes sense. Makes
True.
sense.
That's 11%.
Yeah, so 11% 40 to 44,
44.
and then within that is probably, well, most of that will probably be, no, within that is where most of the IVF patients will lie, I'd imagine.
Oh, hang on, you'll like this bit here as well, actually. Hang on. It says, however, HFEA, which I think is, I don't even know where the reference is for it, the Human Fertilization and Embryology Authority, they raised concerns about racial disparities in IVF. It said that in recent years, Asian and black patients have had lower birth rates compared to white patients and those from a mixed ethnic background.
What, in IVF? Or
Yeah, in IVF, yeah. And the chairwoman said, we're very concerned to see that black and Asian patients continue to have lower IVF birth rates compared to other patient groups. And our recent survey found that Asian and black patients are less likely to report being satisfied with their fertility treatment.
there you go.
Interesting. So what we're talking about this, so still, it's a very prevalent thing.
And this
you
is
know?
the thing, that sounds to me very similar to the Public Health England report that I read to you guys. Because I bet you outside of that controlled environment, the reverse is true. Because I'm sure that's what they've been reporting on, the fact that birth rates are much higher in ethnic minority communities than they are amongst Europeans. And yet, when it's within the controlled environment where the medical, establishment is in control, suddenly we see a flip reverse. It's just it does feel like it's a bit of a pattern just across the board. Wherever there's some kind of establishment control, we see an underperformance. And yet when nature is, when nature has its way, that seems to reverse itself. It's just something to be aware of.
No, it makes that, it's just like, I'm thinking, what's that theory, like red car theory, which is like, you don't think of a red car, then you think of a red car. Everywhere you go, you're going to see a red car. So now I'm thinking, I was reading that this morning as I was coming in. I didn't even notice that. I was like,
Absolutely.
Here's another one. Stormzy has received an honorary doctorate from the University of Cambridge yesterday in a special congregation at Senate House.
Oh, amazing.
The rapper collected a doctorate in law under his real name, Michael Omari Award Jr. I think they missed an Ebenezer as well in there, actually, in recognition of his philanthropic work, including in education, music, sport, and literature. Oh. And of course, he launched his own scholarship program at the University of Cambridge in 2018. Oh. The funding originally covered 2 black British students each year for their tuition and maintenance costs before expanding to 10 more. You know what? Big up Storms.
I like Storms.
Big up Storms, man.
like Stormzy.
Say what you want. He's put his money where his mouth is. He's put kids through Cambridge.
There's a nice little body of young successful black Brits that are about it. They make me very
for
proud.
real?
Yeah.
For real?
They make me very proud. Stormzy, Boyega. There's a few of them that just like, you guys are.
The DSS, they be putting their money around, the dark skin society, they be donating a couple of things here and there. All quietly though, they be doing stuff behind there. But we see you though,
Marcus Rashford. There's a few of them listening about it. They're going out and they're showing people how to be real philanthropy. Because a lot of these MPs, they get away with this fake philanthropy that enriches them. This is like, this is real philanthropy. I really rate it.
So,
I really rate it.
Putting kids through school.
Yeah.
Even though he's had a
AJ, all of them. You know, they all a lot of these guys do it, man. When they make it, they don't forget where they come from, and I love that, man.
Yeah.
I love that.
You know.
I love that.
One other thing I think that's probably worth. Oh, hang on, I got two more things. Yeah. So Jeff Bezos is. I don't know why this is in. This is the Telegraph this morning, right? So I don't know why that. You know, I call it the Tory graph, but this is you got to pick up and see what's in everybody's eyes. He's got a fiance, Lauren Sanchez. No idea who she is, but they're in Venice yesterday, and he has basically told everybody, no presents. The man don't need anything. Do you know what I mean? He's going to say, we're getting engaged. I'm putting you up in this big, I assume, mansion, whatever it is. He said, no, I don't need anything. And I was like,
yeah.
I was just Bezos. Bro.
I ain't getting you nothing if I was about it.
Bro, do you know what I mean? No, but you can't go anywhere empty-handed. You get me?
Of course.
What do you about the man who has it all? Nothing.
But he's not going to stop people who are going to get him presents from getting him presents anyway, even though he don't need nothing.
Imagine this. Imagine this if you got this at a wedding invitation. I'd love this. I'd love this. Please, if anyone's thinking about doing a wedding invitation, please write this down. We're excited for you to join us. We have one early request, please. No gifts. Instead, we're making contributions. We're making contributions in your honor and with gratitude to you to making this journey to celebrate with us in Venice. Hold on. He said, we are making contributions. As it, bruv. So they're giving everybody... Right. See that rock there as well? Right, that's Jeff Bezos, isn't it? Two other things as well. What else?
What do you have when you have all the money in the world? You know,
Well,
like nothing's impressive. Do you know what I
it-
mean? Like he has all the money in the world. Literally, there's nothing he can't buy.
What do you gain if you what do you gain if you get the entire world but you lose your soul?
Yeah, what do you profit? Yeah.
Would you profit? Thank you. That's it. You already know. We've got this Sir Southgate. He's got his knighthood for his services to football, which is fair enough, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think there's only been a few other managers that have got that before.
He ain't brought back a cup yet. Chill, man.
No, but Gareth done his thing, man.
Well, just best runners up. He needs to bring back a cup if you want to get that knighthood. What are you talking about?
Man, nah,
That's the thing. They give out the knighthood too easy. Now he ain't got that. Now he definitely ain't bring back a cup.
He done his thing.
They should have given him something to aim for.
Gareth Southgate did his
Just
thing.
dangle that carrot for a bit longer. Say, look, Gareth, bring back a cup and you'll be
see.
sir.
I mean, Ancelotti's going to win it next year anyway, to be honest. It's all what has not the man won? Oh, he hasn't he won? And then finally, there's this is quite interesting actually. So, Shell and BP, which are obviously the big oil super majors, or two of the oil super majors, you've got like Total, you've got Chevron, you've got some others as well. But like, there are talks that they're going to merge together. Oil money, innit? Do you know what I mean? Which is just it's just telling you.
So who are the two that got to merge? Shell and who?
Shell and BP.
See, and there's no law being broken there.
No, I mean
Because that's going to obviously create massive price. I mean, we've already got issues with price fixing when it comes to petrol. But if Shell and BP, then everyone can just forget about it.
Well, OPEC's a cartel anyway. No one's done anything about
Yeah.
OPEC from a...
I know, but I'm thinking just domestically now.
Oh, you mean
in the
like
UK?
along
Yeah, because Shell
down
and
the
BP
chain,
is everybody. You know, that's all the petrol we consume. That's going to
downstream.
create massive price fixing.
I mean, I think people will look at it from an antitrust perspective. I mean, definitely like the US CFI, US QFIS will be involved because that's when they've got like defense things and stuff. You have to look into it, but they'll be looking. Yeah, I imagine they'll look into it. But I mean, do you know what they did? They did something in the UK years ago that because everyone was starting to look. I think some people complain about Asda's pricing, that Asda were being aggressive with their pricing. It was a good thing.
Yeah,
and everybody else was complaining, including like EG Group, which own most of the forecourts in the UK and all the supermarkets and stuff like that. And it was sort of like nothing happened in the end, but it was like,
Yeah.
So
during COVID, they removed a lot of the monopolies and merger laws during the supermarket toilet roll scandal thing.
Yeah.
They're like, the excuse was, the supermarkets need to talk to each other so they can figure out coordinate how much toilet roll, toilet roll. And they basically removed all of those laws surrounding communication.
Collusion.
Yeah, collusion, that's it. All of the collusion laws were removed. And they said, we'll put them back. Well, obviously we know they didn't put them back. And this is probably some kind of tail off
Potentially.
of that.
But I just think as well that like the problem that these big oil companies have had, and these guys do like the upstream production, all of that stuff, right? And like they have made a commitment to run oil off. So Shell, BP, Total, the American guys less so because the Permian, Eagle Ford, Haynesville, these massive oil fields are still working fine. But these guys have all gone and said, no, we're going to do other stuff. We're going to get into gas, LNG if we can. We're going to try to get into electric vehicles, all this stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, well, oil's running just fine and we've still got a lot of oil, even though the resources, at some point the last drop will be out, probably way after our lifetime though. But they were saying, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a kind of move that makes me think, right, is this, and they've denied it obviously, both of them, but like, I don't know if this is a move where it's sort of like, they've accepted they can't get to like this net zero thing, which every company seems to be committed to net zero by 2050, and they can't do it. So like, well, we're struggling, so let's combine and let's try and do it that way. Or it's like, actually, the way the world is going with everything else, oil's going to be in vogue for a long time. Probably a bit of both. I don't know. Need to think about it more. Oh yeah, and then last thing as well, New York, they got a new mayor actually, Zoran Mamdani. I think he's going to be
Italian again.
Huh?
Italian again?
No, he's not. He's I don't know where he is. I think he's he Asian? I think he was like parents born in Uganda or something like that. So I don't know if he's like Kenyan or something like that.
Asian Kenyan.
Yeah. So and that's it. And he's defeated Mr. Cuomo, who's already there. So that's something new. And yeah, people were surprised because he's like a vocal supporter of Palestine.
It's interesting.
Which in the US obviously is a no-no.
New York is a big deal. New York's a big Jewish state.
Yeah.
Massive, 20%, isn't it? Of the it's the biggest Jewish population in the States, isn't it?
So he's described here in I think it's the Tory graph, as a staunchly socialist, pro-Palestinian mayor who wants to control food prices and almost double the minimum wage.
Wow. That's quite shocking. That's quite shocking. Considering it's New York. If you'd said any other state, it would have gone over my head. But I know New York is...
I mean, I know... That's the thing. I know New York it's blue, but also New York it turns very quickly. Like when you get up to the Hamptons and stuff, it becomes red, like blood red very easily as soon as you turn. So I am a bit surprised at the election, but it also goes to show that like younger voters, the power of younger voters and what they can do and how they can turn things around, because there is a massive generational chasm between older guys, some of which are old money, some of which are nouveau riche, and these young kids who have to pay 5-6K for rent in Manhattan, and they're probably saying the buck must stop. So to your point earlier about the political system as we see it now running very fragile, it is, because I kind of think I describe it as like the fall of empire. I also describe it as like the fall of the West. I think the West is falling over, but not in it's almost like the way in Inception, like the dream is coming backwards, right? I kind of feel like that, and and that's my take for the day. So,
all right, much appreciated. Much appreciated, Tom, for that. I can see in the chat people really appreciate that breakdown, man. So thank you.
Maybe come back again soon to
Oh yes.
100%, man. That would be good. All right, Brent.
Do the wrap up, but Andrew's gonna leave a parting message.
Cool.
Hold up. Where is it? There we go.
All right, people. It's been a great show. Thank you once again for tuning in. Today we spoke about a lot of things, man. Today we spoke about the takeaways from NATO's big summit on hiking defense spending and how I believe 8 out of the 32 members are not even meeting their current 2% guideline. We spoke about the government's planned welfare cuts and how much they will save if it even goes through and things of that nature. We spoke about ransomware attack being the contributing factor to a patient's death at King's College Hospital NHS Foundation Trust. They confirmed that. We also spoke about, there's a lot of trigger warnings, guys, so I don't really want to talk about those in much depth, to be fair. But yeah, we did speak about the ketamine crisis, which is apparently overwhelming authorities, man, as children as young as 12 are becoming addicted to that particular drug in the northwest of this country. We spoke about Edgar Lungu's family and how they've condemned the court decision to stop their private burial in South Africa. We're going back and forth with the Zambian government. And we spoke about the 17 soldiers that were killed as gunmen. These bandits raided the army bases in northern Nigeria. Also, guys, this was released by the US Embassy in Monrovia, but it's likely right now to be rolled out across the board, basically telling visa applicants to make their social media accounts public so that they can be vetted before they get their visas into America. And of course, for topic of the day, we spoke about whether black cracks or whether it burns, or whether SPF and skin cancer is a conspiracy, if it's needed, or is it a want? You know what I'm saying? We went into a lot there, so people, make sure you go back and listen to that if you haven't already. And yes, thank you so much, guys, for coming and talking to the people, man. The people I could tell from the chat, they loved it, man. They loved the discussion.
It was fiery, but I think it was good fiery in that it needed to be.
No, for sure.
Yeah, it needed to be because it's one of those things. Like if I came and I was like, black people don't need broccoli. No one would have cared. I would have been like, okay, what's your science behind it?
No,
but I think when it comes to a
steaks,
subject like this, so when it comes to a subject like this, especially, and I was thinking about actually when I was just quiet for a moment there, just thinking about, especially if it's something like we all here with, I would say, the community's best interests at heart. Yeah. So if we, as part of our brand, have been pushing this, and this is perhaps something that I didn't consider when I came in gung ho, because I've unfortunately, when you do a lot of research like I do and stuff like that, and you get into these like research caverns. And it makes you very irritated. Do you know what I mean? You start to feel like everyone's buying into that same agenda. So when I came out here, I think a part of my energy was that frustration of being in that false information circle. But then actually, when I was thinking about it, we're all here. We've all got the community's best interests at heart. And if you've been pushing the SPF narrative, you know what I mean? You need it with literally best intentions. Then you're going to take what I say offensively. And I get that. And I totally get that. So I don't want to undermine anyone's position when it comes to that. I totally get it. I think we've all been misinformed. And I think it is my role as an independent researcher to sometimes I find things that people just don't see, you know? And it's just the nature of it. Actually, that's a good segue onto the book that I'm releasing.
All right.
Which is, I've sent to Brent, let's show on the screen, Reconstructing Egypt, which uncovers... for those of you who don't know, my channel, King's Monologue, focuses heavily on research, history, and anthropology, and I do reconstructions of ancient Egyptians. And this book uncovers the falsifications currently being made in the field of forensic facial reconstruction. And it takes an anthropological approach to reconstruction of ancient Egyptians in their, or what I believe to be their true form, by taking into account all of the anthropological, genetic, anthropometric, craniometric, artistic data that we have available. And it's got to be literally a first of its kind. So that's launching. The pre-sale was supposed to be launching this weekend, but it was a bit too tight. I go on holiday this weekend for a couple of weeks. So I think it's going to launch literally as soon as I get back. So in about 2.5 weeks, the pre-sale is going to launch on Kickstarter. You can order yourself a copy, and the release is going to be set for early October of the book.
Nice.
And I was inspired by this guy over here. I'm always inspired by this guy over here, by the way. But I was very inspired, and he doesn't know. But our last meeting,
Me?
this
you.
guy over here, in
Brent.
our last meeting, he left me very inspired, and I literally made a decision that day that I was going to this very long-standing project that I'd never decided to do. I decided to make it a reality. So I'll be collating all of my research, all of my papers.
Well done.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank
And
you
you
so
have
much.
a site to for people
Yes.
to actually
Register on the pre-sale. So I sent you the link. If you just go to tkmedu.com/book launch.
All right, let me just put it in the chat, and then I'll put it in the description.
So say it again, because you said it too fast.
Sorry, tkmedu, that's the website.com. And if you put /book launch, book-launch, it will take you to the book launch page. I think actually if you go to the homepage, there's a big banner that'll take you there as well. And if you click on that link, it will take you to the Kickstarter, and you can just click on, if you just click on the notify me of launch on the Kickstarter, that will be enough for now. When that goes live, you'll get a notification and you'll be able to order a copy on. Yeah, you'll be able to order your copy.
You go and notify me, and then you put your details in here.
And that's it.
This is powerful, man.
Thank you.
I've said that on the show quite a few times that I love the reconstructions, man. Like, again, for me, looking through, the history, the different dynasties of Egypt, I've always struggled. I said this the last time you came on. I've always struggled with how did Akhenaten look? And then when you did it, I was like, okay.
Wow.
Now it makes sense. You know what I'm saying?
That's Akhenaten top left, by the way, those of you who could just see it on the screen in the back in the gold. That's my reconstruction of Akhenaten. And it's based on that statue beneath him. That's actually a plaster cast mold of Akhenaten's face. That statue is based on a plaster. So now they say that ancient Egyptian art is all stylistic. Yeah. No, there are plenty of plaster cast molds.
Wow.
That's Akhenaten's actual face. You can find that statue in the Louvre? No, in the Neues Museum in Berlin.
Oh, wow.
So that's my photo. I took that photo in Berlin. So that's in the Neues Museum, you can find that photo. And I based my reconstruction on the features in that photo. And it corresponds quite nicely with the mummy of KV55. So I'm actually postulating that it's the same person. Possibly, yeah.
It's powerful, man. You know what I'm saying?
Wow.
Like, obviously, I've not seen the book yet, obviously, but this could be one of those essential readings for
100%.
children. You know what I'm saying? For our kids
man.
to see how people looked, our people looked, African people looked. You know what I'm saying? As opposed to what we have been seeing for decades now. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, this is powerful, man. Thank you very much for giving to the people, man. People support, man.
Thank you. And thank you for letting me share it, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah.
All right, people. Again, like I said to you guys, people in the chat are really happy. They even want to see you both back on at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what the topic will be, but yeah, both of you guys, obviously you guys know already. You
More time to prepare, innit? That's all I just flew in. This Brent, next time, innit? Just
give your heads up.
Yeah, little heads up, innit? So we can do it nicely. But no, it was good. I enjoyed.
No, it was a pleasure meeting you.
I
I know straight away if I'm going to, even if someone's going to be intellectually opposed to me, I know straight away if I'm going to like someone. And if someone comes out and like, I don't watch TV, I'm like, yeah, cool. There's a 99% probability that we're going to get on.
That's it, man.
Because you have to agree with me, you just have to think.
No, I learned a couple of things.
Yeah.
I'm definitely going to try it. On my next walk, I'm going to try it with some shea butter and see, and just going to see it works. And I'm going to try it.
That's
I'm gonna
amazing.
Try it.
That's
So
amazing.
after
That
sun,
is
I'm
like
still
more
keeping
than
in it because I ain't getting like raw aloe vera and putting that there. After sun, I'm still having that, but I'm gonna try and see, and I'll come back. And next time I'll let you know, and I'll be honest.
Can I throw something out there as well? So, as someone obviously who's avoided SPFs for my own specific reasons, you don't have to avoid them like the plague. But actually, if you want to go SPF free, then you like to use moisturizers and stuff, you have to look for night creams. Because day creams contain SPF. That's why they're called day creams. I didn't know that until I looked into it. So a lot of people will know that already. But if you don't know, anything that says day cream on it will contain SPF. So if you want to get a moisturizer that's SPF free, then look for a night cream.
No, because it took me a long time to realize why people moisturize at the night, like before
Yeah.
bed.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm doing that, bro. I'm like, what's this, man? It's hustle. Just want to go in bed, like shower and whatever. But it's okay. All right. So
Yes. All right, people. It's been a great show. First, in fact, before we leave, I want to big up someone called Lewis. He put his whole government in his in the YouTube, so I'll just say it. Lewis Williams. Yeah, I met him yesterday. Obviously, when I left where we're about to go afterwards now, I was just minding my business and I saw someone like in my peripheral. I seen him, mind his business. Obviously, I've stopped in traffic and he's walked up. I was like, "Yo, E-man, TDA." Da-da-da. So obviously, he's like, "Yo, he listens to the show. He loves the show. He tends to listen afterwards because he works late." But he tunes in, man, listens to the show. He's bigging up everybody on the show, man. So just want to big him up as well. So big up you, Lewis, for supporting what we do. Appreciate you. And appreciate all you guys who are in the chat, man.
Brent, big yourself up. Give yourself something, Brent. Give your, big up. Big yourself up, Brent.
I pressed it. Thank you very much. I hope you all have a blessed day.
Yeah,
Later. Bye.
Peace.